Good evening, councillors, staff and members of the gallery. My name is Nathan Shanks. I'm currently filling in for the Mayor, Karen Redmond. Welcome to tonight's more so hybrid meeting, let's call it. We're going to work through some business in the agenda. However, we do have some allocated time, an hour in fact, to talk all things draft budget and submissions. So I'd like to start with a statement of acknowledgement. We'd like to acknowledge this land that we meet on today is a traditional land for the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationships with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important to the living Kaurna people today. We'll just run through the attendance record. Roll call. I've received an apology from Councillor Lorna and one from Councillor Hughes. So if we can have them noted. Thank you, Susie. Looking for any motions to grant leave of absence, councillors. There be none. And our leave of absence there is, as before mentioned, Mayor Karen Redmond. Non-attendance, we have covered that in the apologies. I'm going to move through to public open forum. Now, just for everyone's benefit, we've got two versions of public open forum. The first version for public open forum is the typical public open forum that we allow any members to address council on any items they see fit. I would recommend, though, not to use this part of the meeting to do anything to do with the draft budget. We have a dedicated public open forum for anything to do with the draft budget following this item. So with that said, did I have any speakers in regards to any items that's not draft budget related? There be none. That was an easy one. Perfect. So I'll move on to the public hearing in regards to the draft annual business plan. Just again for everyone's benefit in the room, this is our opportunity to take verbal feedback on the back end of our also written feedback. I'd like to thank everyone that has used the process to provide that written feedback. We have a chance in a special council meeting coming June 10th to really unpack it all, but tonight's verbals will also be collated with all that feedback as well. So this is our time to listen to that feedback and we look forward to it. So we have people that have put their hand up that they want to address the chamber on the draft budget. If at any time you would like to jump onto that list, it's not closed, and I'll stop and call for any further people if you want to put your hand up. But I do have the first off the rank, Mr. Ian Tooley, in regards to the draft annual budget. If Ian, you'd like to approach the podium and do your submission. Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, the minutes are not aligning with the way that my names are on my sheet, but all good.
Can I just ask a question of clarification?
Absolutely.
As the regulations state, there's a minimum of 1 hour, and I don't think I'll get through this in 5 minutes. I know the 5-minute rule applies to the other forum. I'm presuming it doesn't apply to this. If I finish the first section and there's time left after the other speakers, I presume we can come back and speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're not operating in the 5-minute rule. I just will ask that we do share it around.
Of course. Yeah.
That would be great.
All right. Thank you.
No worries at all.
Thank you very much. And a little later, I've been asked to present a petition on behalf of 2 other people who would be here but they're ill. So that's a
No,
separate thing as well.
Completely understandable. We have that in the
Okay.
petitions side, which we'll address at that point.
Okay, thank you very much. So, just as a matter of introduction, I observe that you're required to comply with Part 2 of the Act, Section 123, regarding the annual business plan, and particularly Section 4(1)(b), which says, inviting interested persons to attend a meeting of the Council to be held on a date stated in the public notice at which members of the public may ask questions and make submissions in relation to the matter for a period of at least 1 hour, is the Act. You have received my submission. It was submitted by the 23rd, so I won't go over that. You'll get that in preparation for your June meeting. But what I'd like to give feedback on tonight is in two parts. First of all, some practical solutions regarding reducing the 6% rate increase. And secondly, a brief history of why TOG Gawler Council is in the dire straits that it finds itself in today. And as we know from history, those that fail to heed the lessons of history fail. So, solutions and savings. In this chamber 2 years ago, 2023, debate raged as members took on the Gawler administration in order to cut the planned 6.5% rate hike. And a few things stood out from that debate. The TOG administration had informed members that the draft budget was already the result of significant cuts by the administration, well over $1 million in cuts already. And they advised the members that there was little fat in the budget, little room for you to make any more cuts. CPI sat at 6.5% in 2023, and the TOG administration wrote in its officer's report that CPI must be used as the basis and the justification for setting the rate rise at 6.5%. A simple search of that agenda proves this point to be true. 4 of the members sitting here tonight submitted between you 10 motions on notice to make drastic cuts to that 2023-2024 budget. You were not having it that no more cuts could be made. You were not having it that 6.5% was reasonable. Councillor Hennessy submitted 2 motions. Councillor Solomon submitted 2 motions. Councillor White submitted 4 motions. And Deputy Mayor Shanks submitted 2 motions. I won't read them out, but I've printed them all off here, every one that you listed, and it's in that agenda. But I'll tell you the result of it. The result was, for the budget that you were told by the administration could not be reduced, you cut $1.2 million from that budget on the 3rd of May 2023. And because, as you know, and Deputy Mayor Shanks told us this many times in the chamber, and it's in the notes from the administration, that for every $250,000 you cut from the budget, you can reduce the rate increase by 1%. So the members had thought, with your 10 motions, that you had brought the budget down from 6.5% rate increase to 2.5 to 3%. The members, however, soon discovered that CEO Nat and the TOG administration used that $1.2 million in your cuts not to cut the rates, but to write down debt. There's a whole story that I won't go into now about why that was the case, but you were borrowing money to pay wages because of a decision that Mr. Nat made about the enterprise agreement. So instead, you came to the 27th of June 23 council meeting, the one that you'll come to in a week's time equivalent, and the rates increase remained at 6.5%. Outraged, the members backed Deputy Mayor Shanks' motion at that 27th of June meeting to cut a further $390 from the budget. And this time, Deputy Mayor Shanks was savvy enough to say, and the cut will be used to reduce rates, not debt. So Deputy Mayor Shanks' motion was successful. 390,000 was put below the line, and the rates decreased by 1.5% to just 5. I say just, it's a drop from 6.5 to 5. The standouts from 2023 are this. There's 4 of them. CPI was your guide and your justification for setting the rates increase. Despite CPI running at 6.5%, the members would not accept such a high rate impost on ratepayers. Members were prepared to take on the administration, despite being told, as you've been told this year, that the cut's already been made, same rhetoric, and you fought them and you won. And for every 250,000 in cuts, rates come down by 1%. Now, don't tell us that there have already been those significant cuts in the development of the 25-26 budget and that the rates therefore must remain at 6%, because that's what you were told in 2023. The Todd administration always claimed that they've made cuts in order to land at the draft budget. And it's true, but it's misleading. What we know about the budget process and how it works is that departments all put in ambit claims. Happened to me as a principal every year with my budget. Every department put in massive claims because they knew if the pie was this big in claims, it could only ever be this big in reality. So before it ever got to consultation, we, the administration, cut the budget. That's exactly what's happened here. So, for example, you might end up with $10 million in grabs. One department wants a new truck. Another department wants a complete IT renewal. On it goes. That's what happens. Mr. Cowley and his exec team have to get that ambit claim and bring it down to what you get as the so-called draft budget. But what they do is this. They had the $10 million ambit claim. They cut it to $5 million, and they come to you and say, you can't cut anymore. We've already cut $5 million. Well, that's the standard budget procedure. Every single draft budget that we've ever received in this chamber has gone through that process. And the one that you've got now, you've made no cuts to. I haven't seen a single motion from any of you trying to make any more cuts. What you're working on is you're believing that Mr. Cowley's budget from the admin is it, and therefore you're accepting it and it's 6%. You didn't do that in 2023, but you seem to be wanting to do it in 2025. Despite being told that the budget was already set, as I said, you ignored that, you fought hard, and you brought the cuts down, and you cut the rate down to 5%. This year, CPI is running at 3%, inflation at 2.9%. Your own officer's report in the past has said that CPI is a reasonable and fair way to set the rates increase. It says that most people in this town will accept that. You've set it at 6%, double the CPI. Okay, let me focus now on some savings. Let me give you some practical solutions where you can make savings. And here's just a few suggestions. First of all, you could cut the staffing bubble from the Inat Redmond years, where 4 extra staff were added each and every year for 11 years, adding 44 staff in 11 years. Taking a conservative average of $100,000 hit to the budget for every new staff member, it requires, therefore, 40 new rate-paying households to come online just to tread water and cover those additional staff. 44 extra staff resulted in $4.4 million in ongoing wage increases to the budget. And that required an extra 1,760 new households coming online, no benefit to the town or your budget, because every bit of that went to pay for those extra staff. Staff costs have ballooned so that now your staff budget is $15.5 million annually, and that eats up nearly 50% of your rate income. In 2020, because you might be thinking, well, Ian, we can't just cut this. In 2020, the bloated staff bubble hit the budget fan for Adelaide City Council, and they were forced to shed 160 full-time equivalent staff following an external audit. and that council did not collapse. In 2018, the bloated public sector staffing bubble hit the budget fan for the SA government, and they shed 2,300 jobs, and the government didn't collapse. Your first way to get yourself into the black and have some money to spend on things of benefit to this town is you need to drastically cut the bloated staffing bubble, but a mass cull would be cruel. The humane approach is to allow natural attrition to cut the TOG workforce by not replacing staff that leave, and do this for several years until the bloated staffing legacy from that Annette Redmond legacy is cut to a sustainable level. Here in your draft budget for 2025-26, rather than make a saving to reduce the bloated staffing bubble, you've decided to replace a departing staff member. And I heard the argument between Councillor Samble and the CEO when Councillor Samble said, we can't have these extra staff. And the CEO said, no, we're just replacing people who have left. So you've had an opportunity to not replace them, but now you're going to have an economic development officer. The very one that Councillor Hennessy moved below the line in the 2023 budget because it couldn't be afforded. Not only is this a missed opportunity to cut the bloated staffing bubble and cut $100,000 from the budget, but do you really think that a dedicated economic development officer will fill empty shops? Do you think it'll get Jim Vallelonga motivated to build his motel? Do you think it'll get the other large shop and motel built in the main street above the empty shops down near Phoenix Plaza? It won't, because the economy drives that, not the whispering of some economic development officer. Do you remember how the iconic Crosby building in the golden heart of our main street, now Leslie's, sat idle and empty for more than a decade, and did so despite the mayor, the CEO, and those with the responsibility for economic development regularly engaging with the owner, and despite TOG hitting the owner with a punishing set of extra fees and levies? Do you remember that? Because the Crosby building owner, Mick Matty, couldn't care less. And he upgraded the building and leased it to Leslie's when it suited him and when the economic conditions were favourable, not because of the pressure or whispering from an economic development officer, the mayor or the CEO. You are delusional if you think the economic development officer will fill empty shops, will activate the CBD. Oh, and by the way, you do realise that as well as the Bunyip leaving, we're now losing another major retailer who will close up in the next 3 months from the Golden Centre. It's the economy that drives these things. Do you really think that we need an economic development officer to activate the hub that you have here and to kick out the long-term residents who should have not been in there because it's meant to be an incubator for new businesses? It's never fulfilled that role. Do you think that we need an EDO to tell us how we should activate Goose Island for the likes of Concerts on the Green or medieval fairs? Do we need an EDO to tell us that we need to host the tour down under, that we should have RV-friendly free overnight parking so that we can bring the grey nomads in? All of that builds the economy. We don't need an EDO to tell us that we should have a rodeo in the centre of our racetrack or down at the rec grounds. Next major saving. Cut the $2 million earmarked for a few metres of Pioneer Park wall, and you could cut the rates from 6.5% down to negative 1.5% by cutting that $2 million. Now, if you're a council flushed with money, doing well, not on your knees like this council is, you might indulge in the luxury of replacing an old wall, but not when you've got so much other need and you're in such financial dire straits. But I can hear you saying, Ian, it's a listed facility of historic status. We can't possibly not do anything about it. Well, let me remind you, TOG recently demolished the historic wall of its neighbour on High Street when the neighbour disagreed it needed repair and couldn't afford it. The neighbour was so incensed that you knocked it down that he blocked off the laneway, so you and the public couldn't use it. Town of Gawler demolished the historic Bluestone Wall on High Street behind Cafe Nova and didn't rebuild it. Town of Gawler finally allowed the Lutheran School on Lindott Road to demolish 150 metres of listed historic wall and replace it with sensible concrete tilt-up by Arns with a nod to the historic look of the building at a fraction of the price. And don't forget the plethora of historic buildings that TOG allowed to be demolished to make way for Woolies and Big W, even including the historic fire station and museum. You allowed that to be demolished. So don't tell us you can't demolish that wall. And also don't use the old cemetery bones as yet another excuse. Pioneer Park was deconcentrated back in 1930. Developers build on cemeteries, old cemeteries, all the time. Builders and developers continually come across bones. They respectfully move them. Your anthropologists did that. You removed some old bones from your diggings behind the wall and now sitting in the Gawler collection. Over at River Lee, they found what was thought to be Aboriginal burial site. Hasn't stopped the development. So none of that. They're all red herrings. You can demolish that. In times of plenty, you might want to do that, but not too. It adds up. You've already spent 0.3. This will be 2.3 million on an old wall when you've got so much else to do. Cut that, and you don't have to have a rate increase. You could also, last couple of points, you could cut the many tens of thousands allocated in your budget again for more consultants, reports, and legal fees. I've been here for 7 years, guys. You've done it year after year, and those new plans and reports that you spend tens of thousands upon, they sit on your shelves. Only partially are they used. Some of them are completely forgotten. But again, in this budget, you've got tens of thousands for more consultants. And then there's the $580,000 needed to appease the lobby group that's so influential in this council. 3 of its members still sit on this council. They want you to put bluestone curbing on 12th Street. Now, while this extra 580 is not specifically earmarked, what it is, it's in your bucket for roads and footpaths development. And as we all know, when this council wants to, at its quarterly reviews, it can conjure up all sorts of money. Now, you had 12th Street upgrade on the books, in the price budget, ready to go. I'm almost finished. You had it on the books all ready to go. Something unprecedented happened in February. The lobby group got you to bring that budget item back to this chamber. And you remember it because 4 of their members sat here and spoke to you. And one of them, Mr. Shackley, he spoke to you for 6 minutes, 6.5 minutes, and then he said, I think I've run out of 5-minute time, to which the mayor said, no, you've got an extra 40 seconds. He had 8 minutes. When the likes of Julian Midwinter, Shane Bailey, Ian Tooley, when we're there in the forum, bang on 5 minutes, were shut up. But not that group. And what did you do? You halted that program for 12th Street, the most needy street in this town, and you said, we will review the Bluestone policy for you. And you put at risk $900,000 funding, co-funding from DIT, who is not guaranteed they're going to roll that over. And I came here the other night. You remember I came along with some people only to find that the session we came for had been cancelled. But you talked about the curbing. Your own funding has shown the preferred long-lasting concrete curbing is $150 a metre. Bluestone starts at $580. We're not a council flushed with money. Is not Julian Terrace our prime boulevard? There's no bluestone curbing on that. I'm sad to say that this lobby group is actually the reason why this council is in the financial crisis you're in today. They've had significant influence and still do. Do you remember just 2 years ago you spent an extra $25,000 on the Aris consultant to try to tell us that growing bush tomatoes is viable in the Cudler area, when we all know, and the state government knows, It's a cherry for the picking for residential development. But this council, under the influence of that lobby group, was still trying to lock that area up. That group have stymied the very growth that this Gawler Council desperately needs. And as you've said yourself, you need commercial rates and you need residential rates in order to boost your growth and bottom line. If you aren't prepared to make the cuts needed, members, to bring the outrageous and unjustified 6% rates hike down, then you must vote the budget down at the next meeting, and you must send it back to our highly paid executives to earn their money and rework it, and you say to them, don't you bring it back to us until the rate rise increase is in the band of 0 to 3%. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tooley. I'm just moving down my list. I've got a Dan Harris. Hey Dan, how you going? If you'd just like to pop up there. And again, I've got another, one more member, but that's not to say that the book is closed. So just a reminder, if you do want to contribute as well. You just want to press the button there, Dan. And welcome.
Okay. Awesome, thank you so much.
No worries.
Thank you for your time. My name's Dan Harris. I'm from the Anglican parish of Gawler, but I'm also standing here on behalf of a steering group which has been set up to restore the Church of St George. That steering group is bigger than just the parish because the Church of St George's is bigger than just the parish that meets there. For those of you who aren't familiar, St George's is the very large neo-Gothic church right in the middle of Oleana Square in the centre of Church Hill, in the Church Hill Heritage area. It's very prominent. You can see its tower from all around. It is obviously valued. It's considered I think the phrase I've heard someone use is, it's a repository for Gawler's treasures. Thank you, Helen. That was a beautiful little phrase I've been able to use elsewhere. It's also been part of the town of Gawler since it was founded. It's been built over many years. The tower was completed in 1921. The bells that were put in there were the town of Gawler First World War memorial bells that were put in there. And it's very much a living building. So windows were restored in the 90s. The organ was installed in 1984. Some of the internal roofing was fixed in the 80s. Very much a living building that's still used, and we're surprised always at how many people have a connection to the building. So in contrast perhaps to some of the other speakers today, I'm coming with an opportunity for the town of Gawler to participate in a project of historical significance. We've undertaken a heritage conservation survey of the building in 2017. Which identified an issue with the roof. Church roofs, it's a bit anachronistic, but it is a thing. And particularly the slate, which is used to cover the roof, which was installed 100 and something years ago from Wales. The slate has a lifespan, it's past its end of life, and is now fragile and cracking. So the challenge we have is to replace the slate roof with another like-for-like slate roof in order to maintain the historical integrity of the building. It's not a small task, particularly for a parish. So, but we're well supported. It's a very well-managed and professional project that we've been able to pull together. In particular, we've got an architect, Andrew Klenke, supporting us from Swanbury Penglaze, who's also the cathedral architect for both the Anglican and Catholic cathedrals in the CBD, currently undertaking roof restoration projects there as well. He's engaged the builder, one of the very few builders who can do slate roofing in South Australia, James Henry Roofing, who's been engaged with the project for about over 5 years now, and has provided really good cost estimates and solid budget, so we know what we're aiming for. The total cost of the project over a few years will be about $1 million, which is far in excess of what a parish by itself can attain. But looking back over the history of the building, it's never actually been the parish itself which paid for or supported the building. It's always been an effort of all of Gawler, and we consider ourselves custodians of this cultural asset rather than its owners and exclusive users. It's certainly something we would like to see developed more. We think there is a greater opportunity for both the Churchill Heritage Area and St George's in particular to be an icon for Gawler. Its setting in Oleana Square has a lot of potential. We've been blessed by a bequest we received from a member of our congregation to build a labyrinth and garden of healing on Oleana Square. That generous gift has been like seed capital for this complementary idea of once the roof is restored, you don't just want to end up with what it looks like now, but with a new roof. We want it to be a beautiful place. Oleana Square needs to be activated and needs to reflect the town of Gawler, particularly we feel with new residents coming to Gawler and knowing what is it that they're coming to. They're not coming to a greenfields town. This is a city that's been here for a long time and has a deep and rich history. The funding obviously is quite a lot and beyond what we can do, but we've broken it up into multiple stages. The first stage, which we're currently aiming for, is $150,000 to order slate, to actually get it in a shipping container from Canada, of all places. So we've actually been able to achieve quite a significant cost efficiency in switching from Welsh slate, which is about $20 a piece, to Canadian slate, which wasn't available back then. It was only $8 a piece. So we've been able to get the cost down for the 21,000 pieces of slate or so that we need, and we're currently working towards that goal. We've applied for state heritage funding, which is a maximum of $20,000, which seems like a drop in the ocean compared to the size of it, but such as it is. The parish has run multiple fundraising events, so the volunteer time within the parish that's been put into that has held 4 events so far. We've raised about $10,000. We're going to run more, and that is the sign of the commitment that the church has to maintaining and restoring this building. But obviously it's going to be a multi-stakeholder project. So we've lodged a submission for the town of Gawler to match the Heritage SA grant funding and the funding that the parish has been able to raise so far. So we've asked for $20,000 to match the Heritage SA grant funding. We think that's a modest request as a token of affirmation from the council to participate in this project alongside state government, alongside the parish. So we ask for your support. We think there's a huge opportunity for St George's to be improved. We think it aligns with the economic development potential of the town of Gawler with regards to tourism. And most importantly, we don't want to see the church fall derelict, because that wouldn't just be an indictment on us, it would be an indictment on us as a community and how we value the heritage and things that the places that we've come from. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dan. I am just moving through my list. I've got a Will. It looks like Will Shave on my list, but I note it's a U there. So, Will, would you like to come forward in regards to the Dads group, I believe? Beautiful. Thank you, Will.
Hey everyone, hope you are all well, and tonight I'm just here to talk about something positive. Won't take up too much of your precious time. My name's Will Shave, and I'm here to support our amazing Dads group that we've got in Gawler. Just 2 days ago, my family and I welcomed our second little child into the world, little boy, and thanks to the amazing support network that I've got at home, my wife, in-laws and the village, I'm able to be here with you tonight. I do apologise, but I am going to make a swift exit after I've finished here, so I've just got to go tuck those little boys into bed. We all know that it takes a village to raise our children, and it's exactly what our group has been able to create within Gawler. Led by Kim, it's all about just kind of finding support within what we don't have. And as males, we're kind of silos within the community, and we just try and do what we do, but we really need more kind of togetherness with what we've got going on. One thing that I have noticed throughout my experience in the hospitals is that it can be a very information poor and isolating place for dads. And I just can't understate how valuable it would be to have male support workers. Not sure if that's something that you guys can note down and try and implement to help to support dads within the community when the birth is happening, because I think we all know how important the family unit is during that time. The more that we can support the dads, the more that the wives are supported, and then everything kind of fosters within the community as well. With your support, We can help to support, to expand this village through helping to support the Dads Group, not just in Gawler, but helping to pave the way for other councils as well, to ensure that all dads around Australia feel empowered, connected, so that we can help to foster a better community just for the future of everything. I think we all know what I'm trying to say there. We don't want any of the other stuff that goes on. We just want to be a nice little community that we can all kind of move upwards with. So thanks for your time. I just, want to say thank you for the last 12 months of what you guys helped out with. And let's just keep on building something amazing here so that we can keep on doing it around Australia as well. Thanks.
Well, thank you for your words, and also congratulations to yourself and your partner on the new edition.
Thanks, heaps, mate.
No worries. Moving forward, I've got Kim. Speak to the same Kim Wright, thank you.
Yes, he's on a tight schedule.
And,
Brand new baby at home. Thank you.
I understand it more than most, Kim. All good.
Thanks so much, and thanks so much for your time. I presented some packs tonight, so I'm not going to go through everything that's in there. Please,
Did
don't
you
be
want
worried.
us to play the video too, Kim?
I'm sorry?
Did you want a YouTube clip played as well?
Oh, yeah, could I? Is that
Do-
okay? It's only a couple of minutes. That'd be great.
We have managed to get it up
Oh,
on screen.
thanks.
Would
This-
you like that to be played first, then
Yep.
you speak?
Yep, that's fine.
Yeah.
This video was made a couple of years ago and
Yes.
sponsored by Movember Foundation. But it just gives you a great idea of
Yep.
what Dad's Group is all about. Thanks.
No worries at all. Thanks, Kim.
Every day's different. One thing's guaranteed is you're going to have to wake up early.
Looking after it all day, cooking the meals, keeping the house clean.
Your kids spewed on you. You didn't have sleep last night either, and hardly seen your wife for the week.
Everything's about to change and you have no idea how and what you need to do.
Do you know what you're doing? I don't know what I'm doing.
Dad's Group started as I realised I had no idea about how to dad. So I actually connected with some of my mates who were already dads with their babies. And we, started what was our first Dad's Group unofficially.
Dads in the community, you come together, have coffee, talk about the challenges of what it's like being a dad.
I think to talk to your mates who don't have kids about your kid, they can probably find it a bit dull. But for you, it's so exciting, it's such a special place in your heart, so it's nice to relate to people in a similar sort of situation.
As dads, we're meant to be the tough one. For us to feel that we're struggling at home, that's always hard to talk about.
Some of the things I talk to the guys about, I couldn't talk to my wife about. It's the male nature. We don't want our wives to know that we're struggling and suffering and whatnot.
When you get around other dads who are, going through the same thing, it's great to just know that there's other people in the same situation.
After I leave Dad's Group, now I just go home full of energy, full of fresh ideas, and that reinvigorates who I am as a dad, as a person, and as a man.
I actually stay home and look after my daughter where my wife goes to work. There was a period there where I was really down, I was struggling because I felt like I was failing as a dad, as a partner. And then talking to Tom and getting involved with Dad's Group, it brought me back to where I needed to be. I now run my own Dad's Group. I'm now repaying what Tom's done for me to other guys that are struggling, new dads and that.
Movember funding has changed Dad's Group because it's allowed us to explore running more Dad's Groups. It's allowed us to fund, analyse it, iterate, and then roll it out again. The underlying challenges that you go through, every dad has those in different ways. And so in talking about it, people just connect and resonate by getting those feelings out there. We don't do that enough. We don't recognise that, but it unlocks the power to console someone, unlocks the opportunity to encourage someone, it unlocks the opportunity to impart wisdom. I mean, that is the most exciting thing about Dad's Group.
Aren't they great? And Tom Docking was the last person speaking, who's now the CEO of the Dad's Group organisation. And his story started 10 years ago, and probably this video is probably maybe about 8 years old. So whilst the Movember Foundation funded the video, funding is obviously still needed, and that's why I'm here again too. On behalf of the Dads Group SA team, we would like to express our sincere gratitude to the town of Gawler and their leadership and support in championing fatherhood and father-inclusive initiatives over the past year. Your investment has already had a meaningful impact on the way local services and systems connect with new and expectant fathers. Building on this strong foundation, we have now developed phase 2 of our work, the integrated model of care, which is in your packs, you can read later, which significantly expands our reach and impact with a formal letter of intent secured from the Lower McEwen Hospital in the last few weeks, and additional support from other hospitals in the region. We are poised to implement a scalable and sustainable model that embeds father-inclusive practice into hospital and community health settings over a 3 to 4 year period. This progress would not have been possible without strategic foresight and backing of the town of Gawler, and we now respectfully request your continued support through, firstly, an extension of funding for additional 12 months to continue delivering the digital fatherhood program to local families, and secondly, a letter of support from Council for our integrated model of care, which will strengthen our case for additional hospital and foundation partnerships. The initial investment last year of $8,000 from the town of Gawler enabled a discounted delivery of our $12,000 program. We are open, certainly, to discussing a renewed contribution that is aligned with Council's budget capacity, understanding that this support would once again catalyse a much larger region-wide impact. We are proud to highlight Gawler as a national leader in supporting fathers, families and equitable community-based care. We would also like to mention that our SA team and significant work that is being done was recently highlighted and acknowledged amongst our country's leading fatherhood and family researchers at the Australian Fatherhood Research Symposium in Melbourne Melbourne on the 1st of the 2nd. Further to this, the program was recipient of the 2024 Children's Week Award, Play Award from Children's Week SA. We would like to acknowledge your leadership and support in these regionally and nationally important achievements. We thank you for your partnership and we look forward to working with you to deepen this impact together. Just very quickly, in the pack you'll see an executive update and a program report that we've put together for the council. And I just wanted to highlight some statistics. The online digital sessions, our target was 52 sessions and we achieved 84. Our Facebook group Families Connected, our target was 50 and it's actually now over 75. Fortnightly in-person meetups, our target was 20 plus, and we've had 26 fortnightly meetups, and we now have a monthly midweek dads meetup for dads, where we have guest speakers come in to talk, and our next month we're actually focusing on Men's Health Week. Estimated total of fathers supported, 50, and through the digital program we've supported 105 fathers across the region. And fathers receiving one-to-one support, our target was 15, and over the last 12 months we've been able to support 33 fathers. So we're really proud of those highlights and what's been able to be achieved. I guess one of the major highlights for me is that formal support from the Lower McEwen Hospital, being our major birthing hospital in Northern Adelaide, 6,000 births a year. And to have that letter of intent and support should funding become available to work in partnership with the Dads Group organisation is a huge step forward. We had a very productive meeting with the Gawler Hospital 2 weeks ago, and they're taking that again to their Director of Nursing and Midwifery, but very, very positive about wanting to be a part of that as well. Connected with that is the Mount Barker Hospital because of the cluster that they're in, and I'm also proud to say from our Dads group there is now a Dads of Adelaide Hills group that's started, which will connect in beautifully with the Mount Barker Hospital. So we're growing, which is terrific. Thank you for your time. Thank you so much for your support. Understand the constraints of budgets. Certainly, nothing ventured, nothing gained, I guess is my thing that I would talk about. If it turns that we don't continue on with the funding, we would certainly relish a letter of intent and support from the council. and happy to provide a template to the council to look at and decide on whether they'd like to do that. Thank you, and thank you again for your support.
Thank you, Kim. And sorry, 2 seconds, and thank you for all that you do. Chris, would you like to provide some feedback, and then I'll go to your question, Councillor Koch.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I just want to commit to writing that letter for you. So, yeah.
I'm sorry?
I just want to commit to writing and signing that letter for you.
Okay, I'll get the letter, the template to you tomorrow. That would be fabulous. Thank you so much.
No worries at all. Just if you could wait there for a second. You had a question?
I just want to, it said the letter would be of support and intent. What does it mean by intent?
The meaning behind that is, if should funding become available from, I guess, whether state or federal funding become available, that you would be happy to be in partnership with the Dads Group organisation. Yeah, we're not asking for, to put a fatherhood worker in a hospital, you're probably talking about $120,000 a year, and that's not what we're asking for at all. What we are asking is that your continued support for our program, whether that be funded or unfunded, but that we can take that letter to major funders, whether they be philanthropic or government, to say, yeah, we have the backing of the Gawler Council to say, yeah, we believe in this program, and the same that the Lyell Mac Hospital has decided to do, and also hopefully the Gawler Hospital will do as well.
I just want to clarify, it doesn't oblige us to fund it. Is that,
no.
Because that's what it sounds like to me, but I just want to get that clarified.
No, there's no obligation for funding at all. We're not asking for funding like that, obviously that large amount of funding anyway. It's just the backing of the council to step forward and increase our footprint in South Australia.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Kim. And I think the technicality of what that will look like we'll unpack on the June 10th as well to provide those response. But yes, you'd like to see her? Yep.
If I can, just to round out that commitment I just made, it would be a letter of support. I wouldn't be committing the council to any funding. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. But we'll be able to work on the nuances.
I'll certainly provide the template for you, and should you wish to make changes to that or want to word it differently, you're more than welcome to do so.
No, I look
it's just really a guide for you to understand, I guess, where Dads Group organisation's coming from with that, because they just want to obviously take it further. It's a not-for-profit organisation, so they are working towards becoming a nationally funded organisation, whether that be through philanthropic agencies or services or government. Certainly they're putting towards documentation to Treasury federally at a federal level, which would be wonderful if that comes through. There's also, I will pass on to Chris if I can tomorrow, there's a link to, there's an expo, Dads Group Expo being shown on Zoom on Thursday about what's happening in the Sunshine Coast Hospital and how that's actually going ahead. The program has actually been implemented in the Sunshine Coast Hospital. So it's a really a good way to understand where we're coming from as far as getting into hospitals and working further, but also continuing with our community groups.
No worries. Thanks again, Kim.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Look forward to working with you into the future, whatever that looks like. Okay, so moving down my list, I have a Karen and Richard Prowse to present. Karen and Richard? No? That was that's all good. We might have had someone that wanted to speak to the draft budget but didn't come in tonight. That happens. Also, I'll just take the opportunity to let people in the room know that Councillor Vallelonga's just had to dart off for a work matter. He will be back hopefully in about half an hour, 45 minutes, I believe. So to that end, would anyone else, we will get to the petition, Councillor Koch in the petition section. We do have Mr. Tooley, you'd like to speak again? If there's no one else that would like to address the chamber on the draft budget, by all means, Mr. Tooley. Sure. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, we're here to listen to ratepayers about the budget. do have some business to go through in the agenda, but we've still got time.
Sure. Like I said, it says a minimum of 1 hour, so...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's, yeah, we're well within that time. So,
Okay.
yeah, please.
Yeah. Just as a little aside, I hadn't heard of the Dads Group, but I did ride with 500 other motorcyclists on the 18th of May for the Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. Not that I'm distinguished, but we raised several $100,000 for Movember. So I'm really pleased that that Movember funding is going to something like that, which is brilliant. Side issue. Okay, after I've finished this, I've been asked to present a petition. So, okay. I call this a brief history. And the reason I think this is important is that it's relevant because the forces and the people who played a part in this history of influencing TOG to get you to where you are financially today, those forces still exist today, and several of their allies sit in this chamber. As Councillor Davies recently informed us at the Gawler History Team meeting, which was a very informative presentation, I learnt quite a bit. He informed us that there had been a long history of town of Gawler craving growth. And for that growth, it craved residents and it craved businesses and commercial interests. Fast forward to 1950, and the town of Gawler lobbied the SA government to locate the new satellite city of Elizabeth adjacent to become part of Gawler. Gawler argued that we needed a population boost, 1950. We had plenty of land. We had the railway. We had the main North Road. But Gawler lost its bid, and it had lost its previous bids to get growth. This was a time when Gawler really wanted and chased growth. It needed people, and it needed enterprise. With TOG still craving a population growth and new businesses to ensure viability, fast forward to the mid-1980s, with the South Australian government rationalising and reforming the centuries-old council boundaries, government-driven, not council-driven, and cutting and amalgamating councils. Town of Gawler and the mayors of the day considered both amalgamation with neighbouring councils, and they considered expansion. The South Australian government settled on an expansion and amalgamation model, which dissolved, in this particular case, the Munapara Council, and expanded Gawler's boundaries to include a big slab of Munapara North and a slice of the Barossa, and pretty well it's the boundaries that we have today. That was the time when Playford was also formed out of Elizabeth and Munapara. However, and I'm sorry if this is uncomfortable, but however, with TOG becoming hijacked by ideologically driven individuals and lobby groups, these newly acquired lands, which town of Gawler had wanted for development and growth, were mothballed and not developed. This is the key to why you don't have the revenue base that you have. Instead of developing the lands of the Cudler rural area, instead of developing and expanding the industrial and commercial precinct along Main North Road, which exists to this day, and that TOG inherited from Munapara, these areas were instead rezoned rural. Talk about cutting off your nose to spite your face, and any development for housing or commercial purposes was stymied and prohibited. The town of Gawler also wrote policies, developed vision statements and guiding principles, you still have them on your books, for the rural zone, and ensured that nothing could be done in the Cudler rural zone. Those policies and statements exist to this day. Owners and businesses that already existed in the old Munapara commercial district, you know the area where Terry's Tiles used to be and that section along there, Neil's farm machinery, they were not allowed to expand or develop. No new businesses were allowed to establish. And when a business failed, its footprint land was meant to be returned to the rural land. Do you remember Eckermann's Nursery? What happened to that? And this is a big part of why town of Gawler lacks the rate income that it needs to thrive, and why town of Gawler budgets are only treading water at best, and why Town of Gawler can't achieve any big ticket items for our town. Town of Gawler is in a financial crisis, according to ESCOSA. Because one, we have failed to develop and expand both the residential and commercial rate bases around the Cudler area, and two, because Town of Gawler has failed to live within its relative meagre means as a result of failing to develop, the biggest bit being that balloon in staffing costs. Matters got worse in the 2000s and beyond as the lobby group and the ideologues strangled hold on TOG intensified. The Cudler zone was left to fester. The Cudler commercial precinct steadily declined. Town of Gawler opposed Springwood development until the government intervened and gave it rezoning. Town of Gawler then set about frustrating the Springwood development. I was on the council at the time when they said enough is enough, and they jumped past your cap and they went to the SCAP. You lost control of Springwood because of that. Because of these ideologues driving your agenda in this town. Town of Gawler flipped on the Eckerman site on the corner of Main North Road and Gordon Road intersection, and you actually rezoned it from rural to commercial. Everyone thought that was a good idea. Peter Kittle was going to build a batching station and a hydrogen filling station and an EV station and employ 160 people. But then the ideologues on this council and the lobby group went to the cap when Mr. Little put his plans in, and they drove him nuts. We want more setback, we want more trees, to the point where Mr. Kittle walked away and we lost a commercial precinct of 160 potential jobs. Some of the ideologues and the historical members that still influence this council and sit in this chamber, as recently as 2023-2024, were having you spend another $25,000 on the consultant for Aris Consultants. I mentioned that earlier. In the hope of, again, locking up. Well, when Ian Tooley sat on this council and he backed the people of Cudler and their hundreds of submissions to you, I warned you that if you did nothing, because all they wanted was half-acre developments, that if you did nothing, it was a cherry for picking for the government, and that we'd get what nobody wanted if you leave it, and that is dense urban infill. Fast forward 2023, 2024, what has the state government done? It's punished you and said you're not doing enough. Playford's doing enough, Barossa's doing enough, Light's doing enough for residential, you're not. And so it's overruled it. And it was a no-brainer. Electrified railway line, Northern Expressway, Main North Road, flat land. But the ideologues and the lobby groups that have controlled this council prevented you from doing anything. And so now you have been ridden over by the government and you'll get dense urban infill that nobody ever wanted. And Mr. Cowley, to be honest, I heard your media report that you said, you know what? And it's the language of the lobby group. We're still going to get a green belt and we're going to go for half acres as a soft development. You're not going to get it. And you're not going to get it because you could have had it with the half-acre development had this council listened decades ago. But land is selling, and Mr. Valonga will know this, land is selling there now. The developers are coming and they're buying it for $800,000 to $900,000 an acre, and nobody's going to give you a slab along Dalkeith Road and allow you to have your green belt, and no one's going to forfeit 8 houses to the block or half acre for 2. They're not going to do it.
Sorry to
it's a furphy.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Tooley. Are we able to link this back to this expenditure that's in the draft budget?
Yeah, I'll finish up with this. The reason that I'm mentioning this history, Mr. Shanks, is because you are in this position that you are because you failed to grasp the opportunity to expand your rate base. And so what you have to do, you're living beyond your means. You have the dreams to do things, but you don't have the revenue base because you haven't developed. You might get lucky with the government coming in and rezoning, you might get lucky. And when you do get lucky, that's when you can afford the luxury of things like $2 million walls. But until you're flushed with money, you can't keep employing staff, you can't keep replacing staff, you can't keep spending money on $2 million walls. This is the link to the budget. My final point, before I move to the petition, is I actually don't present tonight because I think you'll listen to me. In fact, the body language of some of you tells me you haven't been listening to me at all. But that's nothing new. I understand that. And the problem is many of us out here, and some of the people who told me they're putting a submission but they wouldn't bother to speak, is because they don't believe you listen. And that is a sad reality. If there's been 30 submissions, there's only 5 of us that have presented tonight. There was one time when I was the only presenter and I wasn't even given a 30-second extension. You'd remember that from 2023. So I don't come here expecting you guys to listen, because I think you live in a bubble and an echo chamber. But I've come to be on the record that I tried to talk sense. And you'll notice, yes, it's lengthy, yes, it's wordy. I don't just come to you and say, don't give us 6%. I come to you with an argument, with a dialogue, with reasons, with history, and with examples of what you can do. But as I say, I don't expect anything, because I've never seen it happen with this council before. But I certainly feel better. And I certainly thank you, Deputy Mayor Shanks, that you've actually let me speak. That is a big first, and I appreciate that very much. So I'll finish that there. And if there's no one else to speak, I'll move on to the petition that the other people have wanted.
Thank you, Mr. Tooley. And just to be clear, I certainly am listening and taking notes. Whether or not I agree with those points, we'll be able to talk them through on the June 10th meeting. So just moving through, I need to still provide the opportunity to anyone else, whether you would like the opportunity to speak to the draft budget. The hour does run out in about 5 minutes' time, so you still have some time, but if there will be no speakers, we'll carry on with the business of the agenda. So just putting that out there. No, all good? Last call? Okay, no worries. So I'll move forward on the agenda. We've got deputations. We don't have any deputations.
Petition.
Yes, the petition is in the order of the agenda. Yep, so I'll just run through the order of the business. Thank you. We have no agenda items, so now we're on the item of the petition, which again we'd like to offer our thanks to those that took the time to sign the petition. Just so we're clear, that petition will actually be a part of the submission and received, and we'll also, if obviously it gets up tonight from the chamber, it will also be a part of the June 10 meeting as well. Mr. Tooley, would you like to speak to the petition?
Yeah.
You know where the microphone is?
Huh? I know where the microphone is, yeah.
Yeah, all
yeah,
good.
it's feeling very familiar now. Okay. The 2 ladies that have presented this petition, one is the name of Nadine Morell, and the other is Jackie Hamilton. So about mid last week, they read some Facebook posts. They were incensed with the 6% rate rise. They sought advice and they produced a petition. And I believe that they presented the signatures they had by the 23rd, and that you have that. I think there's about 9 pages. And they have gathered some since, which is what they've given me tonight. So I'll read the petition that they wrote, and it says this. We, the undersigned, submit to Gawler Town Council that we are opposed to the 2025-2026 draft budget, and we do not agree with nor accept a 6% rate rise. Rate rises should never exceed inflation, and the inflation and CPI is running at around 3%, and then 3% should be the maximum for any rate rise. We, the undersigned, demand that our elected representatives reject the draft budget and send it back to the TOG administration to be reworked and brought back for consultation based on a maximum 3% rate rise. They then formatted that page with the required columns, names, addresses, phone, email and signatures, and then they set about setting themselves up in front of Woolworths, the main street, giving these to businesses and the like. Nadine and Jackie began collecting around about the 21st of May, and in that short time, based on the 12 pages of signatures with around 15 signatures per page, it would appear that they have the signatures of around 160 to 180 Gawler residents who are strongly opposed to a rate increase of 6%. So I have the envelope. Do I just give it to someone? Does the...
Yeah, that's...
Is there an official system for this? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. We've received a copy. Also, are we able just to note that Mr. Tooley spoke on behalf of the petition before we move into the officer's recommendation? Is that something we can minute, just so? Yeah, thank you.
And so they're asking that those additional pages be added to the ones you have?
Yep, no worries. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
So we have an officer's recommendation, members, as is on the screen, which also notes the additional pages as well. I'm in your hands. You're happy to move that way. Councillor Davies, would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, look, it's, I think in terms of the substance of the petition is another matter entirely. I suppose what we're doing today is receiving the petition. It is a legitimate petition. A lot of local community members have expressed their views through this, and we will take it into consideration as we go through the budget process.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Do I have a seconder? You're happy to second Councillor Vallelonga. Any discussion from you, Councillor Vallelonga? Any further discussion, Councillor Koch?
Yeah, thank you, presiding member. I'm quite happy to support this because there is real concern in the community about the 6% rate rise, which is every year for 10 years, and it's cumulative, so every year it goes up. Essentially, after about 10 years, your rates will actually go up by about 43%, which is huge, really. It's double the CPI. People have to realise that this budget is the first step in the long-term financial plan. And if you look at that long-term financial plan, that takes, not only is it a 6% rate rise, it also includes borrowings, and our borrowings will go up to about $35 or $37 million, up from the 22 million, which was our cap. Now, that is very concerning to me that we will have this position where we'll have this huge debt. And this is all predicated on the fact that we've underinvested in our assets. But if you actually look at the detail, you know, our asset renewal has been over 100% for the last 3 years rolling. And if you look longer than that, it's much higher than that. So I don't know whether we're going to have asset renewal at 200% potentially. I'm not sure. But the other concern I have is that after about 5 years, we repay back $21 million. That all is based on basically rate rises for the first 5 years. So we're going to borrow, do all this stuff, and the rates will just continue, you know, at 6, but cumulative, so they go up and up. So I'm very, very concerned. And when I talk to people in the community, I've spoken to a lot of people in the community about this, they're very, very concerned, and they're saying that we should live within our means. So I hope that we do take this on board and think about it long term, because this is the first step in the long-term financial plan, and I think that long-term financial plan is a road to ruin. So I'm quite happy to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Koch. Councillor Solomon?
I just want to make a brief comment, of course, just in relation to the discussion that we're having tonight. Personally, I don't think it's appropriate to have a de facto budget debate using a petition, but I do want to emphasise that that doesn't mean that the the members of the council sitting here who perhaps disagree with what's been put are being silent on this. I would encourage everyone watching online or in the gallery to join us for the actual budget debate, where we'll have a very robust debate about that. And I think that what we're doing tonight is, of course, in this motion, receiving it, noting that, showing that we have all read it and we have all acknowledged the intent behind the submission which is coming to us, which is that people want their rates to stay down and they want them to stay down over the long term. So having noted that, I would just say that rather than having a de facto debate, I would suggest we wait until the budget meeting, because this is an opportunity to hear from the public, not because we like the sound of our own voices. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Solomon. Any further discussion on the petition?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Just very briefly, just wanted to thank Nadine and Jackie for their work out in the community of gaining these signatures. A petition is a fantastic method that is built into the system of local government to have community voices heard, and I think in my time on council this is probably the largest petition we've received, so a big kudos to Nadine and Jackie as well as the hundreds of community members that have signed it. I take on board the comments that both Mr Tooley and Councillor Kosher said, and like Councillor Solomon has said, look forward to debating them within the chamber in a couple of weeks' time, but did really just want to thank all the community members that were involved, because as a body of elected representatives, we are only as good as the feedback we receive, and you know, unfortunately, we often receive feedback when we have done something wrong or community aren't happy, and that's okay, but the way we get better is by actually hearing that feedback. So yeah, big thank you to the community, particularly Nadine and Jackie.
Thank you, Councillor White. Any further discussion on the receiving of the petition? There be none. Councillor Davies, you're happy for me to close the debate. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, members. All right, we're going to move down the agenda. I'm looking for a mover for the confirmation of minutes for the ordinary council meeting 22nd of April and the special council meeting on the 13th of May. You're happy to move that way, Councillor Kosh? Would you like to speak to it at all? No. Yep. Have I got a seconder for the confirmation of minutes? You're happy to second. Councillor Hennessy, thank you. Do I have any further discussion? There be none. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Business arising from minutes is nil. Now you had a question? No, that's okay.
No. Was there the special council meeting on 13th of May that we had the minutes to?
Mr Deputy Mayor, we just effectively moved them both together.
Yeah, that was a part of the...
I need to pay attention.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, thank you.
No, that's okay, no worries. Now we're going to move into our decision reports. Before we do, I'm going to take the opportunity before we get into the decision making. Councillor Hennessy has just asked to make a quick statement.
Thank you, Mayor, Acting Mayor. I just wanted to inform the chamber that very sadly one of our older residents, Margaret Leake, passed away on the weekend at the grand age of 92. I acknowledge all the work she has done for our community, both through the Red Cross, and she was one of the last members of the Gawler Institute. So I just wanted, on behalf, with the family's permission, to make that statement tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Hennessy. And we'll move into the decision reports. I feel like there might have been a process miss that Susie will correct me on later on allowing the conversation to go that way without the sort of leave vote. But anyway, we'll work through that. Now we're going to move into the decision reports. We have item 9.1. Members, we have an officer's recommendation. I do have a conflict of interest from Councillor White, if you'd like to speak to that.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Yes, I'm just going to declare a general conflict of interest for item 9.1. I've previously provided paid work for the Gawler Business Development Group. However, that hasn't taken place for over 2 years now, and there's no intent from either party, myself or Business Scholar, to engage in work over the next financial year. So at this stage, I'm going to declare this as a general conflict and stay in the room and participate in the debate and vote in the best interests of the community.
No worries. Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Solomon?
Just partial, just declaring conflict and also seeking leave to just make a personal statement about this particular item.
Yeah.
I think I need to seek leave for the personal statement part. Yeah.
Yes,
Yep,
we're
excellent.
all happy with
Excellent.
that. Yeah.
Thanks. Just
the leave
want
is
to
there.
indicate that obviously I sit on the Gawler Business Development Group board, but just wanted to voice that during deciding on what would happen with the funding from Business School, I did abstain from voting on the Business Scholar board for the intention of staying in the chamber and talking about the broader funding model as part of this item. So I did abstain from all the parts that I saw relevant to do so there, and that's in the minutes of the board. Just moving on then to declare a general conflict being the, as is usual practice, just being the council representative on that board as well, but I do not believe that there's anything beyond that that would mean a conflict where I have to leave the chamber, so I'll stay in the chamber, discuss and vote on the issue.
Thank you. Councillor Solomon, do I have any other declarations of conflicts, or are we happy for this item? Yep. You've got a question?
So before we move on the motion, just in regards to point 5, there was some feedback that we got about this item by email today, just pointing out that, for example, the rebate to commercial ratepayers, a lot of for people who are renters, for example, that money goes back to the landlord, etc. So I just wanted to clarify what ways we could potentially work through that feedback.
No worries. CEO, you happy to provide feedback?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Just to explain the mechanism. So what Part 5 is attempting to articulate is that, for example, if less than the $205,000 was spent, for argument's sake, call it $180,000, that would leave a balance of $25,000. When we came to the next year, we would actually, rather than raise perhaps the full budget from the special rate, we would raise the requested budget less $25,000, and that would be the mechanism for returning those funds essentially back, rather than writing individual cheques back to ratepayers. Does that clarify that for you? Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Yeah, absolutely.
Part of the arrangement is the $70,000 for an economic development officer. Okay, how does that work, and how do we assess whether that's an effective use of resources? Because is there going to be any evidence-based assessment? Like what tools? How are we going to assess that? And it's only a really short period of time as well. So just some clarity around that, please.
Good question, Councillor Koch. Mr CEO, are you happy to provide feedback?
Certainly, Mr Deputy Mayor. The question of whether it's achieved its ultimate goals and whether it's effective will be measured hopefully by some KPIs and some targets and deliverables that would be put in place. Having said that, at this point in time, I think the articulated point is that it is an appropriate mechanism to employ an economic development officer, and that meets the obligations under the conditions. We're seeking to raise these funds, which is, and David might help me out with the language, what's the reason we're raising this levy? Just that language we put in the rate notice?
Yes, certainly. So through the Chair, it is for the purposes of business development and marketing.
Yep. So in terms of levying the rate, we just have to ensure that it achieves that goal. Now, you could debate whether you think an economic development officer is one of the levers or the mechanisms to do that. But I'd say in any modern debate about that, you could argue that it is appropriate. But I agree with you, we need to make sure that it's an effective mechanism. And that will come into place, again, should council resolve to recruit one, through the position description, through the KPIs and through agreed deliverables that we can put in place to hold that position accountable. Thank you.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Koch? Yep. No worries. Did you have a question, Councillor? No? All right, so I'm looking for a mover for the officer's recommendation. You're happy to move that way, Councillor Hennessy, you'd like to speak?
Yes, I would. And as has been quoted tonight, 2 years ago I was dead set against an economic development officer for different reasons at that stage. However, I've seen a variety of different models of economic development officers being employed by council. I am really heartened after discussions with members of this, from the report, from the minutes of the working group, and from discussion with a couple of the board members about how this is setting up. I'm very happy to support this. It's a year. I think there's a new flavour with the board. I think we're better positioned now to be able to actually create some, as the CEO said, some KPIs that I think are going to be achievable. So, yeah, I'm happy to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hennessy. Looking for a seconder. You're happy to second, Councillor Davies. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, look, this is the plan that's been, I guess, reached after discussion with the Gawler Business Gawler board, and so happy to see where it goes for this upcoming year.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Do I have any further discussion on the item? Would you like to go, Councillor Samble?
Deputy Mayor, I'll be voting against this. You know, like we've heard tonight from speakers and things like that, and I do a lot of walking and talking and with the businesses in the street. I also read a very lengthy email today from Mr. Shane Bailey, a successful businessman in the town, and in what he said, and I hope every councillor read what he said, because he's got some very, very positive points in that. You've heard myself, Councillor Hennessy, and a few others say that we have a lot of staff, and you've heard that from Mr. Tooley tonight, and so forth. And sadly, I've lived in a business world and that for a long time, and if my staff can't step up, they step out. That's probably a pretty broad statement, but I just cannot believe that so many times, and I've just been attending a number of History Month's events and so forth, and some of the work in other towns which I've been part of and so forth around, and especially I'm a member of the Goyder Council, in what they do and how they go about it. This town has got a beautiful main street and a lot of empty shops. The people in those shops, most of the shops they lease, they don't own them. They're owned by very successful people that live in our community and so forth. But the thing they say to me is, why are we being penalised because we're in the main street of Gawler? And in a lot of other towns, I was down at Mount Gambier last Thursday, and vacant shops everywhere. And I spoke to one shop there, and they said, well, the trouble is the council put an impost on us for having a shop in the main street. Guess where they've opened up? Just on the outskirts of the town, and they're very successful because they don't pay any impost. Now, we've heard about this where the Business Gawler, Development Board, whatever, and so forth down the line. But so many people I spoke to in Murray Street when this matter was coming to the table tonight said to me, how about council helping us and we will then employ more people and so forth. I spoke to the new, I won't be going there because I've got no hair in that, but the new beauty salon down the bottom of the street, which used to be Gawler's Picture Theatre many years ago. Many thousands of dollars have been spent on that. A complete new business coming into this town. That's great. But then you walk up the street and you see this shop. You talk to Leslie over here. Sorry, I've forgotten her Christian name, the lady that's there now, and that sort of thing. And they're all struggling because they've got this impost over top of the rent and the lease they pay. So I just think, I don't believe we need this person. I believe we've got these sort of people in our staff now. As Mr Tooley said, and as I've said many times, $15 million for wages in a town this size is not on. And we've got to look carefully at who works here, what are they doing, and can they possibly step up to fill into this position instead of us taking on that. This is my personal point of view.
Thank you, Councillor Samble. Do I have any further? You got a question, Councillor Davis? Yep.
It's just to the CEO around new staffing, just in terms of what are we currently doing in terms of, the making sure that our staff are efficient when we are bringing in new staff or reviewing old staff positions.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. So the way I approach staffing is every role, should it come vacant, is reviewed. And we do have a genuine lens internally about whether it needs to be filled or not. I don't want to speak too much on it tonight, but I will be talking to the council about a number of roles that are currently vacant, with looking at, is there an opportunity to not fill those roles going forward? So I guess I want to assure the council and the community that we are actually having a genuine look at this. So we still need to have a focus on delivery, no doubt, but as a commitment to the community, I make that commitment to the council that we are having a genuine look and looking at the opportunities that might exist.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Davies? Looking for any further discussion on this item, Councillor Solomon.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to emphasise a couple of points because I think they're important and they speak to the other matters that have been raised in this debate by the councillors. But I think I'll touch on the issue of an economic development officer first because I'm someone who was in favour of that motion to pull it out those 2 years ago, and the discussions that I was having at the time is that we don't just want someone who is an economic development officer in name only sitting in that role. So we don't want that role, and it's not a reflection on whoever would be in that role, it's a reflection on the fact that we didn't actually have any sort of plan that coincided with what that person would really be doing. Now, we've had discussions at Business Gawler, which was the Gawler Business Development Group at the time, about just that. And they asked to be provided with a role description at the time, and we were, and the board wasn't satisfied. They didn't think it would help them. When I spoke to business owners, they weren't satisfied that it would do anything for them. I think what this is now is a show of maturity, and it's a show of judgment that we're now ready for this because we've taken our time to think really carefully about what the needs of the town are. And I think that's also speaks to the direction that Business Gawler is moving in, because I make no secret of it that when I had sat there a couple of years, just over a year ago, and as Business Gawler, we had voted to put a 4.5% increase on the levy to request that of council, just because, and now we have 120, 140 grand sitting in the bank, and we have businesses telling us, and some businesses telling us they're not feeling the love and they're not getting anything from that. And there's money sitting in the bank we've taken from them using a tax mechanism that they have no say in. We need to be really careful about that. And I think the new Business Gawler board is moving in that direction. I think we're getting there, and I think they are serious about making sure that business owners in the town get value for money. But we as a council do have a responsibility to push that along, and we have done that, which is to push that and make sure that that is well understood, that we cannot use a tax mechanism to take money from businesses and then have it sit in a bank account. So I just want to point out in here that there's still the $205,000 in there. That is the business scholar budget from last year. That hasn't been reduced. Now, that's a show of good faith because the board has shown promising signs of moving in a really positive direction. What I'm hearing from business owners now is that they do feel that Business Scholar is taking their views into account more so than before, and they are more aware of what Business Scholar is doing. So that's a show of good faith from us as council, saying we're going to give you a chance, but we do really need to ensure that in this next year, everything that we've promised, everything that Business Scholar has promised, comes to fruition. So that's why I'll be supporting this motion on the principle that we have moved on and we are mature, and we have matured as a council to the point where we can have an economic development officer role now, and that we are ensuring that commercial ratepayers are getting value for money. And that's why I'll be supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor Solomon. Any further discussion? If there be none, Councillor Hennessy, are you happy for me to put that motion? I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour? All those against? That is carried. That's carried there, Susie. Yep, thank you. No worries. Moving through, we have item 9.2, and I believe there's a conflict of interest you'd like to declare. Councillor White, before we get moving on that one.
Yes, thanks, Deputy Mayor. I'm going to declare a general conflict again for item 9.2. I'm a member of the Barossa Light and Gawler Umpires Association that are one of the applicants that could be receiving a grant. While I no longer sit on the committee, I'm still heavily involved, and I think it will be best if I leave the chamber for this debate.
No worries. Thank you. You've got a conflict as well?
One of the potential recipients is the PACE Festival. Now, PACE Festival Committee is actually auspiced by the Gawler Makers Market Committee. So they're not a separate organisation on their own right at the moment. So they're auspiced through our committee. I'm on the Gawler Makers Market Committee. So therefore I'm declaring a material conflict, and I'll be leaving the meeting for this item.
No worries. Thank you, Councillor Koch.
I've got a conflict, but I believe that would...
Problems with quorum.
Problems with quorum, so just on what to do about that. I believe there is a mechanism for staying in the room if that is an issue.
I might just go to the CEO to provide some advice on that one.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillor Davies, if you just clarify what you believe is your conflict, and then I'll be able to consider that.
So, as I was appointed by the council to the Gawler Community House Board, and so I am a board member of a group that is receiving funding, so I believe that to be a material conflict.
Thank you. Are you able to just flick off Councillor Koch's microphone there too?
Just give me a couple of moments, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Yep. Just going to get on to the technicality on that one. I feel like we need to get one of the general conflicts back. So it's each elected member's choice on how they choose to deal with the conflict. Yeah, no, I agree.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'm happy to make a ruling that it would be appropriate for you to declare a general conflict and just acknowledge that, and then but note that you're going to stay in the meeting for the purpose of voting. Yeah.
Are you happy with that, Councillor Davies? Ultimately, your choice.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to declare a general conflict. It is, it's a little silly to have to declare a conflict for positions I was appointed by the council to be on the board of, but I was just doing it for safety. But on the advice of the CEO, I'll stay in to achieve quorum.
Thank you, Councillor Davies and CEO. Okay, so we have an officer's recommendation. Are you happy to move that way, Councillor Hennessy? Would you like to speak to it?
Yes, please. As you can see, members, there's been quite an enthusiastic response to our offer for the community grants, which we upped to $15,000 this year. We had 19 applicants, and we were able to successfully distribute monies to 16 of that group. I've been involved in this for a couple of times now. It's always really rewarding to read through the applications, and I know that the Deputy Mayor has suggested that at the next meeting we have some of the applicants come along to the June meeting and talk to us about what they hope to achieve, because some of it truly is quite inspiring and really does add value to our community. So I'm happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor Hennessy. Do I have a seconder? You're happy to second, Councillor Solomon. Would you like to speak? You're okay. Any further discussion on this item? There be none. Councillor Hennessy, you're happy for me to put the motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour? And all those against? The motion is carried. Thank you, members. I'll just allow the... it was Councillor Solomon. Oh, that's all right. We'll request that the elected members that declared the conflict come back in. Yeah, come back and join us. We'll let them get back into the room. Welcome back, councillors. Okay, so we're moving through. We're on item 9.3. We've got an officer's recommendation. Any questions at all before we move? If there be none, Councillor Davies, are you happy to move? Would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, just as a member of the panel, the selection panel, just wanted to say these were all members that we had quite high confidence in and we're quite happy with.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Can I get a seconder for that? Councillor Samble, you happy to second? Would you like to speak at all to the item?
No, I'm very happy with that, what Councillor Davies just said.
No worries at all, thank you. Any further discussion? There being none, are you happy for me to put that motion? I'll put that motion. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. We have an item 9.4, Smith Creek Stormwater Management Plan. Any questions on this one before I look for a mover? Councillor Koch?
Yeah, I suppose the only question I've got is how the implementation of all these things that we need to do. I think it was $11 million, was it? Yeah. And it has not been factored yet into our long-term financial plan. So I just want to get an idea of the timing and how those would be funded.
Thanks for your question. CEO?
Through Mr Deputy Mayor, I'll start, then I may throw to Wendy. My understanding is that it'll be an opportunistic process so that projects will be progressed as external funding sources can be realised, rather than trying to allocate the $11 million project, for example, into our long-term financial plan. Have I got that correct, Wendy?
So through the chair, sorry, excuse my voice is a bit husky tonight. So yes, so while the implementation plan provides a suite of projects and indicative costing, the timing of them isn't set in stone, and indeed they are at pre-concept level at any rate, so they need a lot more design work done. Once the plans have been endorsed through the Stormwater Management Authority's processes, we do become eligible to go in for co-contributing grant funding, so that's obviously quite a boon to progress those. Also, a lot of these interventions link into areas that will have change in land use. So as we go through land use, structure planning, land use changes come on board, developers come on, there'll also be mechanisms to work through how other contributions might come in. And I guess the other thing is there are, within the long-term financial plan, there are allocations nominal for investment in both the Gawler and Surround Stormwater Management Plan and this Smith Creek one.
Does that address your question? Yep, thank you.
Any further questions on this item? I'll look for a mover then. If not, you're happy to move that way. Would you like to speak, Councillor Solomon?
Sure, I'm happy to move. I'll start by saying it definitely wasn't a dry read. Sorry, it's terrible. Sorry, terrible. I know. But I think it was obviously a long report here and a long plans. But I think obviously it's something which is quite important. You know, both maintaining our natural environment, but also a really important resource for living and keeping our area. You know, it's an important resource for industry, for living, for maintaining natural environment. And I think that there was a lot in here which spoke to innovation where it was possible, but also is, as was mentioned, is really important for that future growth and that structure planning as well, to understand how it relates to what needs to be done here. So, you know, happy to move this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Solomon. Do I have a second? Councillor Davies, would you like to second? Would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, look, I'll second what Councillor Solomon has said. Always exciting to read 350 pages of stormwater management policy. It is something that I think people tend to be out of sight, out of mind when there's no storms or water. But we actually had some of that recently and got to see how a few things hold up. But yeah, it's an important report. Happy to second it.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Would you like to speak, Councillor Hennessy?
Yes, I speak in support. I take the comments with due respect. However, this has been a partnership with our neighbours in Playford, and it has been a long time coming, but it does continue a lot of, as Councillor Solomon said, a lot of important environmental work, which you may recall the late Pat Harbison, who was an alderman and deputy mayor, was very much involved with and well known internationally for the work she did in some of this environmental work. So I'm pleased it's moving along. Sometimes these things just take time, especially as we have to go through the co-funding, but I think it's a very good start and I look forward to the progress.
Thank you, Councillor Hennessy. Any further discussion? I might just take an opportunity just to provide a bit of my feedback as well, if the members are fine with it. I read the report and I picked up on the same points. I'm glad Councillor Koch actually asked the question, because that was one of the points that I wanted to understand as well, is that reactionary spending that you could see, but it's not reactionary spending, it's actually proactive spending if done right, and it's thinking about a problem and trying to invest in the proactive avoidance of having to rebuild flood damage and mitigation, and it is something we need to look at as our hardscapes become more prevalent, especially in those southern rural areas as well. The other things that I liked about throughout the report is this is a perfect example of what councils can do when they work together, and we're all singing from the same tune, and what opportunities can be available through state government opportunities, federal, and also be ready for that development that is coming to help our developers understand what we're going to need to mitigate some of the problems they're going to contribute to, while also addressing some other backlogs. So anyway, that was my quick takeaway notes. Are you happy for me to close the debate, Councillor Solomon? Would you like to say anything further?
Yeah, just to reiterate, you know, the need, and as the weather patterns and the like are not getting any easier, and I think that you know, that proactive approach, you know, that we've talked about is something which we really will be really valued in the future, and just want to commend staff and everyone on this collaborative piece of work, and how we're planning to move that forward, and look forward to seeing what comes of it.
Thank you, Councillor Solomon. The debate is now closed. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, members. So moving through the agenda, item 9.5, monthly finance report. Any questions at all from members? There be none, we're looking for a mover of the officer's recommendation. Looking for a mover for the monthly finance report. You're happy to move that way, Helen? Would you like to speak to it at all? No? Looking for a seconder? You're happy to second, Councillor Sample? Would you like to speak to it at all? No? Any discussion on the monthly finance report? And I'm taking it because it's so good, there is no questions with Renee in the room there. So I'm going to put that motion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, members. Moving forward to the third budget update, item 9.6. Looking for a mover. You're happy to move that way. Councillor Hennessy, any discussion?
Just thank you for the reports. They're obviously fairly information dense, but it enables me to ask the questions I need to ask to get a really good understanding of what's happening. But this was very useful, as was the previous report. So thank you very much to the staff for the effort they're putting into keeping us up to date.
Thank you, Councillor Hennessy. Looking for a seconder. You're happy to second. Would you like to speak at all?
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Mayor.
Councillor White, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. Happy to speak. I just have a question, actually. Regarding the capital works specifically, so obviously there's that decrease in budget with works being postponed, I assume. Just if it was possible to potentially get an update from Wendy just on what that looks like infrastructure-wise. When we push back projects, I guess obviously that has consequences. What does this actually mean?
Thank you, Councillor White. CEO, would you like to?
Thanks for that. I'm going to do my best Wendy impression and see how I go. There's two parts to the reduction in CapEx. One is some genuine savings that have come through the system, and as Wendy's noted in the report, that's fantastic. We've been able to deliver projects under budget, so that's great. They go straight. Sorry, I was going to say straight to a bottom line. That translates through to us having to borrow less than we had estimated for those projects. Then there's a whole swathe of projects, and if I can draw your attention to page 411, it gives a good little summary. There's projects that Wendy's team have indicated that we're not going to be able to deliver them this financial year, but we still need to deliver them, so we're going to carry them forward to next year. So what happens there is we won't borrow the funds in this financial year for those projects, but the borrowings will occur next year. So when, and I did get a question through, and I'll just talk about it a little bit. I got a question about, particularly about the capital works wording, which said total savings to the CapEx program. It's not actually a cash saving, it's a reduction in the borrowings that we'll need to draw down. So that's how that plays out. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Does that answer your question? Yep, you happy with that? Would you like to speak, being the seconder to this? Any further discussion? Councillor Koch?
I'm just looking on page 407, and it's to do with the erosion control program. It said that we were unsuccessful with the grant. Could you just explain that one, please?
CEO, are you happy?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I will refer this on to Wendy.
Yep, no worries.
So through the chair, so we had put forward the $99,000 of erosion control funding towards an urban rivers grant process. And we were unsuccessful in that, unfortunately. It also took a long time to find out we were unsuccessful. Without the co-funding from the grant, the works we need to do to achieve the outcome isn't possible. Yeah, in Dead Man's Pass. So we will continue to look at what we need to do in terms of erosion control through there. We've managed to do a few temporary works that have managed the risk for now, and we'll keep looking at a broader program through there.
Does that answer your question? Yeah.
And also just the next one, the new streetlight program. I thought that we renewed all our lights with the LEDs, so I'm just wondering about that.
CEO, you're happy to defer to Wendy?
So through the chair, that's actually a different bucket of money than what went towards the LED light upgrade or renewal project. This is actually a bucket of money that we allocate for new street lighting requests that come through. So throughout a year we'll get a number of different requests coming through, and we assess those and prioritise them, and then we'll invest that money where it's appropriate. In this financial year, requests have actually been quite low, and so we deemed that this financial year we'll save those funds. You'll note though in the 25-26 budget there is also there's a budget bid there for capital lighting new projects. Sorry, that was poorly phrased. And can I please request that you do consider including that one, because funnily enough a couple have come through at the very last minute. So
Thank you, Wendy. Does that provide? Did you have some additional comments to add there, CEO? No, you're okay. Okay, so I've got a mover and seconder. Is there any further discussion on the officer's recommendation? There being none, Councillor Hennessy, are you happy for me to put the motion? I will put that motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, members. Okay, now we're moving through our order of business. We're on information reports, which there is nil. We're moving on to item 11.1. This is on page 437. Looking for a mover for the officer's recommendation. You're happy to move that way, Councillor Davies. Did you want to speak to you? So 437, Councillor Koch. It's just a recommendation for committees. Did you want to speak to it, Councillor Davies?
Yeah, just to say I think if you get the chance to read the attachments, they weren't in the original, but they did get sent on later. But the Youth Advisory Committee in particular, I have to congratulate the minute taker, who I think might have been Chia, but it sort of goes through a lot of the discussion that was had, which is quite helpful. Often the YAC minutes look very dry. Even if you have an hour-and-a-half meeting, it looks like they moved 2 motions. But actually, there's a lot of young people having a lot to say, and I think the minutes reflected it pretty well there.
Thank you for that feedback, Councillor Davies. Do I have a seconder for the officer's recommendation? You're happy to second. Did you want to add anything, Councillor Sandford? No?
And again, I agree with what
Did
David says.
Did you want to check your microphone?
Certainly the youth committee and that they're all positive discussions, and if any elected members have got a spare night to go along to their meetings, I think you'll find that, and we're very proud that they're doing what they're doing.
I tend to agree. It's one of my more favourite committees to sit on, that's for sure. I'm looking for any further discussion at this point in time. There being none, Councillor Davies, are you happy for me to close the debate? I'll put that motion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, members. Moving on to questions on notice. There is none. Questions without notice, members? Oh, sorry. What have I skipped here? Sorry, let's go through. I'll focus on the screen, not... Oh, sorry, external bodies report. That's my faff there, sorry. Thank you, Councillor Koch. So item 12.1, I have an officer's recommendation looking for a mover. You're happy to move that way, Councillor White. Any discussion? No? You've got a question?
Just reading it, with the northern parklands, there's going to be an oval put down there. I think the government's going to invest $53 million. Well, there's going to be $53 million spent, because that actually correlates with the long-term financial plan when we looked at expenditure in capital items in 13 years' time, because that was in, that came up in the 26th of November council meeting. I just want to know about our contribution to that and the timing of that when in our long-term financial plan, it says that we're not going to be contributing to that for another 13 to 14 years after we get our debt down. So I just want to know how we're going to contribute to that.
So that one I'm going to have a crack at, and then I might hand over. The early conversations about the Southern Sporting Precinct, which is what we're talking about in relation to the GARP, the early conversations are about a funding model that looks to actually not make that a council asset, but more of a trust managed asset. Now, this is all conversations that are ever evolving, and it's going to take the structure planning side of things with working with the state government to finish a few of those to really nail in any funding models, co-contribution, whatever that looks like. But my gut tells me with those sorts of conversations, we're not talking about taking money from somewhere we haven't planned to have. If anything, it's about divesting an asset, being the South Gawler's current home, for example, and divesting that asset and using that to potentially co-contribute. But that is not locked away at this point in time, and it takes the structure planning and the master planning that have to come together. Have I done that at all justice there? Sorry, I'll get Chris to add to it because it might actually provide you a bit more context.
I don't think, Mr. Deputy Mayor. No, I reckon you did a great job of that. The only bit I'd add to that is we're all still dealing with the unknown. Whilst we've heard indicatively from the Minister, the 53, and talks about possible sale of assets to fund our portion, nothing's been locked in. So we have a level of uncertainty at the minute that won't come until later in the process.
Okay, the only comment I want to make is that when we divest assets, and it's actually in our long-term financial plan, there was a whole series of reasons why we divest assets, and some of them is no longer used, etc., etc. But if you're considering selling South Gawler Footy Oval to fund that, you're taking away the last green open space for Evanston, for that suburb, which is probably in greater need than any other area in our town to have green open space. They've got a very small area called Bacton Street. Now they are wedged in with the railway line, Main North Road, and the schools around there all have fences around them. So I would be very, very concerned if we're going to start saying we're going to sell the South Gawler area and fill it full of houses, and that group of people who are probably the most, really actually need green open space than anybody else in our town, would be left out. Now, whenever we've tried to sell green open space, we've had this huge pushback. So I'm just really concerned.
So just to clarify there, I can't make those decisions. That should we ever get to a position that comes to any modelling or any opportunities, there is a series of decisions and business cases that need to be tied to those decisions, and wherever we land will be our decision as a collective. The early conversations as such that I'm doing as your representative along with our CEO are talking about the Greater Adelaide Regional Plan and the deliverables opportunities, and the Southern Sporting Precinct or Community Hub is certainly on the agenda of the list of conversations that we need to have moving forward, and as important as the item that we discussed previously around stormwater management and the like. These discussions need to be ongoing, and when we get to the point of actually providing something of a direction, then we can start talking about how we plan to get to that direction. At this point in time, it is in its absolute infancy. We don't have any answers at this point in time, but the discussions we're having are what we can explain. But rest assured that decision is not on my shoulders or the CEO's. This is what we rely on this room to provide. Did you have a further follow-up, or did you want to
Just
talk
one last comment. I was working for the Barossa Council when they were building the Rex up at Tanunda, and they advocated selling open space.
Yes.
There was a huge backlash. I was involved, people would talk to me all the time because I was managing the open space.
Yep.
The council decided not to do that. They put a separate rate on.
Yep.
And the people in southern Barossa really disliked that because they never use the Rex, they will use Gawler stuff.
Yep.
So again, the funding of this is going to be very, very difficult when it's not in the long-term financial plan. Selling land is very, very hard and you get community backlash, and putting a separate rate on is also very, very difficult. So I think we need to watch this very closely because we're going to be offered something and I don't know how we're going to fund it, basically.
And I'm going to rely on that scrutiny as we move through the process, because we acknowledge it is hard, but it is something we do need to unpack. Anyway, we do have the officer's recommendation for the working group minutes. I have a mover in Councillor White. I'm looking for a seconder. You're happy to second, Councillor Solomon. Did you want to speak to the item at all? No? Was there any further discussion? You're happy for me to close the debate. I will put that motion. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, members. Okay, now we're moving on to questions on notice, which there is nil. And then we have questions without notice. Did you have, yep, you're looking at me eagerly there, Councillor Sample.
Yeah, without notice.
Yes.
The question I'd like to ask, and I'm not sure whether it could be answered tonight or whether we bring it back to another meeting. We have heard regularly that we need more street names and there's more development going on around the place. I've had 3 persons that have come to me and they say they get together, probably have a 6-pack or whatever, but they tell me about it. But it's a great idea and I think we should look at it. Each year, someone is listed as the Gawler Citizen of the Year or the Youth of the Year or whatever it may be. And I believe that that person's name in its entirety should be a name of a street in the town. The other part about it, special people, well, you just heard Councillor Hennessy say about Margaret Leake. I mean, a real statesperson of the community and so forth. We don't seem to be acknowledging those people that have been represented or chosen by our community to have these, win these special awards. John Thorpe, for instance, he's been through a lot, a successful businessman and different things and so forth. And he said to me, he said, I wonder why it is when you are the Citizen of the Year, and that's the end of it, see you later. Why not there be a John Thorpe Road or something like that? Instead of, I mean, I must admit, some of the roads that are around Gawler, I had to go looking for a fella today and I had to get out Google and look at it, and I just can't believe it. I don't know where some of these names have come from. I really don't. And I'm just wondering, in this question without notice, is whether we can look at the point of bringing back up those people that have been successful in our community and it being acknowledged in our community to then give them something that their hat will be hung on.
Thank you, Councillor Sample. I might actually go to the CEO. If Councillor Sample was looking for some advice on how we could update our street naming policy to include those award winners, are you able to provide some feedback?
Certainly. Mr Deputy Mayor, I think this is quite an easy one. Ultimately, we'll bring our policy position back. I'll check that when it's due to come back to Council, but we can bring that back with a recommendation that that be included for Council's consideration. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Hennessy, you've got a question?
Yeah, I'm very much aware that we did put a call out recently to look for some more new names, and in discussion with the staff, there wasn't a very large response. So there's some alternative strategies to actually work with some various groups around the town. That might take a bit longer, but we've got a bit of time on our side. So I would encourage Councillor Sample to submit that idea and I'm sure David will put it into the mix as well. So,
Yeah, I'm happy to help on any wording if seen fit as well. So questions without notice. Councillor White, you had a question without notice?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, it's actually a question that's just sprung from a little bit what Councillor Samble was saying and also Councillor Hennessy. Councillor Hennessy mentioned earlier tonight a member of our community that's passed away. I had actually been thinking about this for a little bit, but I think given the circumstances, is there currently a process that exists within council where we acknowledge significant members of our community that do pass, whether it be flags at half-mast on the day of their funeral, for example, or things like that? And if that doesn't exist, is this something that other councils do? You know, and obviously there would have to be some sort of process for how that actually works and what you classify as significant. But I do think that, you know, sadly, it's obviously a very sad part. There are lots of members of our community that have contributed greatly, and as a younger person entering the local government scene, it's really good to learn from them, but sadly you don't learn from them, unfortunately, until you read their obituary. But maybe is there any way that can ever be enacted, even through a very simple gesture like flags at half-mast, for example?
No, CEO?
Through Mr Deputy Mayor, I'm not aware of any council position on it, and I'm just looking for shakes of the head, thank you. I'm aware of it being handled a couple of different ways in different councils. The common one is through acknowledgement in a council meeting. That's a common approach. But I'm certainly happy to do a little bit of homework and maybe have a chat at our next catch-up, if that's okay. Yeah.
No worries. Sounds like that's on the agenda for your next one-on-one. That's good.
can I just add that we have been around this before, and it becomes very tricky. And the last policy, it may not still be current, was that with our flag flying, we follow the Department of Premier and Cabinet standards, because it can become quite fraught. So hence bringing it to a council meeting, I think is appropriate. But I understand the sentiment, and I'd also, maybe it's something we feed into this naming as well. So thank you for your suggestion.
Thank you. Members looking for questions without notice. Councillor Davies.
Yeah, just I did see on that council's been publishing about the Code Blue response. This is something that council tends to get blasted a bit every year when we publish these, because we say you can go during business hours to one of our places, and the obvious response is overnight is when people need help. Just obviously we're not going to be increasing the rates to fund someone to be sitting at midnight in a thing, but you know, just in terms of the communication on where the offerings are and all that, I just wonder if that's something that could be, you know, continued to be communicated to our community.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. CEO?
Through Mr Deputy Mayor, I don't know whether Dave was to share some thoughts on that one.
So through the chair, we have that code response policy that council adopted probably 12, 18 months ago now, and we follow the guidelines of the Housing SA, etc. In terms of access to services, it is part of the posts that we put on social media. Here's the contact numbers for access to service, here's the website links and those things. If people do attend our facilities, yes, it's during standard business hours. We provide them with access to those services as well and links across. And we also work with our partners through the Red Room project and linking them with services there. And some of those partners do have access to overnight accommodation for our rough sleepers, but they need to go through those formal pathways to get to that outcome. We are also looking at, through our Homeless Network, Red Room projects and others, in local government work that's been done by our counterparts across the state around cool spaces and warm spaces in response to the heightening code reds and code blues and the expectation that they're going to continue to grow in the future with the climate the way it is, and what we can do in that area. And there's some trials underway through a number of other councils that we're keeping abreast of, but for now it is linkages to those formal services that are on offer.
Thank you, David. Did you have a question without notice? Or, yep.
Yeah, I actually agree. We do have the policy, David, which is quite clear. I think the problem is the posts are quite lengthy and quite detailed. I don't think people read it to the bottom. I think it's about rewording it and saying, putting the context first, because people just assume because we're posting, we accept responsibility. So I think I agree with Councillor Davies. I think there's a bit of a twitch there. We're going to get that a lot as things get tougher and tougher. Tonight we've heard a couple of submissions where you sit here and go, actually it's not council's responsibility. That's why we're not doing it. We will work with people, we have partnerships, we will cross-promote, but in the end you cannot bring everything back to council. We do not have the funds for it. We need to start redirecting the community to where they need to go to get the funds.
Thank you, Councillor Hennessy. Do I have any other questions without notice? There be none, and we're just moving to motions on notice, which is actually my motion. Just after a little bit of clarity there, governance, am I able to move this, or do I need to call a...
No, you can move it.
I can move it? Oh, no worries at all. You had a question there, Councillor Solomon, before we move into any moving of motions?
Just a quick declaration to be consistent, as much as I would love to stay in the chamber for this one. While it's highly unlikely that this would come across my desk, given the internal controls and the information barriers that we set up, I have previously left the chamber with a material conflict for thanking my employer on behalf of council, so I think it's only fit that I would leave the chamber and declare a material conflict, given that I'm employed by Tony Piccolo MP. Thank you.
That's fair enough. How a member chooses to deal with their conflict is up to them. Thank you, Councillor Solomon. Just allow Councillor Solomon to leave the room. All right, members, I'll move and chair. I'll do my best. Bear with me. If members recall, this was a motion that I had tried to move in haste last month, and it was rightfully pointed out by one of my colleagues as I was walking in, and an oversight in my point from Councillor Lorna in relation to the DIT reports that DIT are telling our staff that we need to be able to even get close to looking at a speed reduction. This is asking for assistance from our local member in acknowledging the logic and data spend we've already done in this area, and trying to get to a position where this was an easy traffic calming solution that was actually tabled through our consultants' reports and accepted more broadly by the people that live on the street and more broadly in the community. But I do acknowledge the return on investment if we have to spend $50,000 to $100,000 on another DIT report to have a solution like this. It was just the risk and reward didn't quite align. And I acknowledge why the officer's recommendation or the response to my motion last time was as such, and I apologise for even skimming it and missing it last time. This is actually asking our local member to talk to DIT and say, hey, this is all the work, the money that we've spent, and there's a potential outcome that's really low cost if we acknowledge the data we've already got, and it actually provides an opportunity to deal with a safety concern, mainly being around speed. You know, if members recall some of the data we got, there's people going down Edith Street and doing 55 kilometres an hour and on this local road. Unfortunately, that is really, really quick in these areas, but it's only 5 kilometres over the speed limit. The response, what I am hoping we're trying to do is actually lowering the speed, increasing safety, and using a traffic calming method that is changing a few street signs. I'm not in support of spending any more money on gathering any more data or anything like that. I want to be able to present this through our local member and plead our case through DIT. Unfortunately, I feel for staff, because unfortunately they have gone to DIT and they're getting told no. I'm trying to turn a no into a yes. But at this point in time, it's merely asking for that state government assistance to work with DIT. How it lands will be based on the response to a letter that we'll send. There is no cost associated with this particular motion. So I'm hoping for some support to do this particular fix while we work on our greater modelling, and we rely on our state government to finish their rail corridor studies and the like. That might change the landscape completely anyway, but in the short term provides an opportunity to get people to slow down a little bit if they're going to use that road, because it was one of the major concerns that were brought to this chamber and previous chambers in the past. So that's my piece. Happy to accept a seconder for my motion, which feels weird, but we'll go with it. Looking for a seconder. Councillor White, you're happy. Would you like to speak to it at all?
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Mayor. No, I'm happy to second the motion. I think this issue obviously has been raised by the local community of Edith, Short and Blanche Streets, obviously for some time. Certainly was around the election that there was a lot of concerns raised. I think kudos to council staff. There was a lot of work done in informing the community, particularly Wendy's team. And it was almost a little bit, while there was work done and it has assisted, it was almost a little bit disappointing that we kind of got to the end of that process and couldn't necessarily give an immediate tangible outcome to that community. Due to a number of factors, even though it was explained that, you know, this is something we need to look at, but obviously that's a more longer term proposal and plan. I think this, what you're suggesting, Deputy Mayor, was one of the options that was presented to the community. I'm not saying it's going to solve all the problems. However, I think the way that this has been, I guess, approached is by working with our local member. You know, this, if this comes to fruition, is quite a simple, straightforward solution. That yes, while it might not necessarily reduce the volume of traffic, which is a large concern of local residents, it certainly is providing some twofold. First of all, that a reduced speed will increase the safety along that street, and second of all, it is showing, I guess, our commitment to the community, that we do understand that there is a large percentage of that local population that is currently still very frustrated and looking for some sort of outcome, some sort of solution. And this is one way that we can help without, I think, whatsoever damaging council's, you know, bottom line, for example. So I think this is a really logical move forward. We have to see what the state government will do, but I think that working with our local state member in going for what I think is a very low-hanging fruit and a sort of straightforward, simple solution will at least show to our community that, yeah, we are listening, and this is one way we think we can help, even though it might not be the perfect solution.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Semple?
Councillor White, that's great. How much longer is he going to be our state member? That's a question none of us can say at the moment. The other part about it is, why not Blanche, Short and Edith at 20 kilometres an hour? Because, you see, the people that are busting all these rules and causing all these problems, they're just going to move to another street. If you make 40 kilometres an hour on Edith, they're going to come down Blanche. I mean, this is the way these sort of people... I've spoken to the Gawler Police, and they said, you know, we're not getting complaints from people. Well, you know, we've got a fantastic police force in this town and so forth, and here we are, and you just know, the speed zone up there, we're now going to put it up to 60. I'm going to go into second gear in my Mustang down there now. It's going to be fantastic. And the thing is with it, what it's going to cost for signs. And as the CEO says, you know, the cost to do all that, but that's on our shoulders. We've got to pay for them. That's a joke. It really is a joke, because at the end of the day, the police are here in this town to do their job, and we are not saying to them, what about Edith Street? Everybody's going down there at 100 k's an hour. They've never heard this. You know, so I'm sorry. I don't want to see us muck around with signs anymore, because we know how much it's going to cost to just give us 10 k's an hour faster on the Mulla Mulla Highway.
Thank you, Councillor Samuel. Councillor Hennessy, you would like to...
Yeah, I also have some severe reservations about this. We spent a lot of time, or staff have spent a lot of time and money, and my understanding wasn't simply the speed, it was the volume of traffic, and there was a whole pile of things. I'm just wondering, the same as Councillor Samble was saying, even if we get this through, we will be up for more signage. I guess maybe if I can ask that staff give us some of their feedback on this proposal and how they see it working or not working.
You'd like that question? Yeah. CEO, are you able to answer that?
Yeah, through Mr Deputy Mayor, I might see Wendy's. I'm happy to give, sorry, let me have a go and we'll see where we land. My understanding is from a traffic management perspective, the primary concern about the primary concern from a traffic management perspective is that if you just do Edith and a couple of connecting streets, it could be confusing for the general public if you haven't gone to a broader precinct and made that 40 kilometres an hour. That's probably the primary concern. Having said that, if the Minister can work with DIT and they're happy to approve call it a smaller precinct, certainly happy to abide by the umpire's decision and take the win. But from a purist approach, that probably is one concern you may get.
So, thank you, CEO. Any further discussion on this one? Yes, you can, Councillor White. Councillor White seeks leave. Does he have it to speak again? Looking for a vote for Councillor White to speak again. He has it. Thank you.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, elected members. I can appreciate the concern from the administration's perspective and from a traffic management perspective, and again going back through the sort of outcomes from the lengthy investigations and lots of options that were, this was justified in there as to why. Probably the last thing I want to do right now is open the can of worms that is 40k areas, which is certainly an interesting discussion, but I don't think is one that. I'm not a traffic engineer, but not necessarily one that's going to help solve our problems that we have in regards to traffic in Gawler. I understand also the concerns about costs of signage, and Councillor Sample, your concerns about the Link Road, and yes, this is a very different, but I also, I agree with your sentiment. I think the thing is though here, right now, our local member is going to be working on this issue no matter what. It's sort of a matter whether we piggyback off this and assist in providing our support, or whether, again, as this council has done previously, is sort of take the back seat and then maybe get told that we're doing this and actually have to bear the brunt instead of actually being proactive and working with our local member. Now, I'm not saying that we have to agree with everything that our local member or the state government says, or any level of government. Certainly don't agree with lots of things that they have done. However, I think this is quite a very simple issue that, while it may be appeasing a very particular portion of the community, because it is a very local issue, I just have concerns that if we don't offer our support in a very simple way by providing a formal request to say, hey, as a council, we're supporting you as in this sort of, application to seek some help. I just think the cons of this short-term solution, if you want to call it that, versus the cons of not saying anything and then maybe being imposed with something that we're not liking, and also potentially that damaging relationships further, when I think it's pretty safe to say we're currently in a rebuild stage. Maybe I'm being a bit too strategic, maybe I'm thinking about it a bit too high level. I just think, this is an open chamber and these are my thoughts. And I think for the benefit of the broader community long-term, positive relationships with state government, particularly the Department for Infrastructure and Transport, I would be saying, let's just play the game a little bit and let's support our local member and our local community on this issue. First of all, it gives a solution to this community, but also longer term, I think maybe it puts us in a better position. Just my thoughts.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Koch?
I just want to clarify, has Mr Piccolo have you spoken to Mr Piccolo about this, and what's his point of view of the world?
I have, and in fact this was recommended process for requesting him to talk to DIT Direct, yeah.
What's his view on the success rate? Do you think it's going to be successful or not? Because he's going to actually have to put some political capital into this.
Yeah, so I mean, we can certainly ask that, but I certainly wouldn't have brought something to the chamber if it wasn't something that he was willing to pursue. And to be honest, when we were talking personally on one of our catch-ups, it was, hey, I know that you've been interested in the Edith Street one. Where are we at with the rail corridor studies from state level? And is there any ideas what we can do in the meantime? And one of them was around lowering the speed, in which our staff turned around and rightfully said, well, unfortunately, DIT aren't making that necessarily that easy. Let me talk to DIT, is the conversation. Does that answer your question? Yeah, I just wasn't sure where it stood. Oh, yeah, no. No, that's all good. Now, if there's no further comments, I'm going to close the debate, which hopefully actually expands on your question a little bit, Councillor Koch, because realistically, members, I have the right to send an email as an elected member. I don't necessarily need chamber support to request my local member to help. The reason I'm bringing this to the chamber is because, one, I want to be very transparent. Two, I think there's an opportunity to send a message that we are listening, albeit we might not be able to solve the world's problems and invest the hundreds of thousands of dollars, et cetera, but I think it sends a very strong message that the money we've invested in all the investigation works on this street over the last few years, it actually took us a long time and chamber change to even get to the position where we actually admit there's a problem. We've changed positions. And I think we've done a lot of great work in working with our staff and working with the community members in the area that are dealing with this frustration daily. I remind members that that road is defined as a local road that realistically is only built for 700 odd cars maximum. These guys are dealing with 2,000 cars every day. That only gets worse as our population grows. Now, we admit there's a problem. Where we aren't yet is when we're actually going to be able to be in a position where we can implement some solutions. This is realistically a traffic calming item that actually might come out of our broader, bigger issue in relation and paralleling with a whole bunch of other traffic solutions that might come about once we're finished doing all our modelling, once we get our answers from the state government in rail corridor activation and the like. But it actually allows us at a very minimal cost of just a few signs if we can get this to pay off. And it does use relationships that we gain as elected members, and I'm bringing it again to the chamber so that we can all collectively be clear that we are exhausting every avenue. And even if we get to the position and Tony is able to act on our behalf and ask these questions and try to help us find a pathway that actually utilises the data that we've spent tens of thousands of dollars to achieve an outcome that was recommended that we actually look at in the first place, happy days. But if he doesn't get there, at least we're still showing that we're trying and we're thinking outside the box. Because this isn't about undermining staff's position. Staff have the ability to be able to talk through DIT and the like. We have the ability to talk through our state members and the like and lean on those relationships and only strengthen the staff's great work that we've done in the space over the years. This could be a very minimal spend to solve help contribute to solve a very long-standing problem about safety. And as for the SAPOL point, absolutely, Councillor Sample, I couldn't agree more. A 5-kilometre over speed limit, though, is less threatening than a 15-kilometre over speed limit. And we've got the traffic data that shows that there are people notably going between 50 and 60 kilometres as a regular in the 2000 that utilise that street. All of a sudden, people might rethink the way they utilise that street if they're getting done at 20 kilometres over the speed limit rather than 10. That's my broader hope for the bigger outcome. But at this point in time, it's merely asking for some support. And I'm hoping that we can send a strong message together. So on that note, I'll close the debate. I'll put that motion, all those in favour. And all those against? That is carried. Thank you, members. Sorry? Oh, Isaac, yeah, Isaac can come back in. Thank you, Councillor Vallelonga. Thank you, members. Okay, no worries. Well, that is motions on notice. We're in motions without notice. Oh, sorry, I'll just wait for Councillor Solomon. Motions without notice. There be none. We're now moving on to council members' attendance and activities. Brian, I know you had a flash drive that we're going to try to, we gave even a presentation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Look, I thought I'd change the ball a bit. We've got a brand new CEO, we've got all new directions, and I reckon it'd be a good idea. We all do something, and at the moment we're doing a lot more because we represent the Mayor at these places. And if a dumb bum like me can put something on a little USB stick, and Mrs. Rhinestone is going to show this, and it's what I've done in the last week. And this includes being involved with History Month and with buck jumpers, and there's a lot of council members' photos there. I'm giving away the Cody ones because he's a bachelor. So could you please run it going? I'll sort of talk it through. It's only going to last 5 minutes, so I won't go over my time like Mr. Tooley. You two guys feature, so you better turn around. Oh!
Just having a bit of a technical.
We're ready to rumble.
So you should.
And then at the end of it, I've got a little ray of sunshine to show you, which I think you'll all enjoy. Can you make it bigger? It looks better when it's bigger.
Why do I have this strange feeling I should have vetted these first?
Hey. What's that?
Why do I have this strange feeling I should have vetted these first, Brian? You're not going to end up with some sort of surprise at the end, are you?
I just plug it into me telly and it plays. Yeah. Actually, the first photo is an interesting one. Up at our farm, we for campfires at night, we throw a little piece of aluminium in and it turns all the fire into different colours. If you've ever tried it, it's quite a sight to see.
Is there an opportunity, Susie, to open one and then press the arrows?
Well, that's what I was trying to do.
Oh.
Won't go like a slideshow, will it? Yeah.
Just a double click or no? Just double click, yep.
That spider there, incidentally. That's it.
And see
Here we go.
That's all right, and then see the arrow.
That's
on the
what
side.
happens. You can buy a little bag of stuff from the camp shops, throw it into your campfire, and that's what happens. And it fascinates the kids, there's no doubt about it, but we regularly do that up there. Next one, next one. We've seen that one. Yeah. Now that one there is called a mouse spider. Now when you're laying in your sweat, hey, go back to the mouse. That's my dog, he's the guard. Oh, why are you there? Oh, gee, hang on.
Sorry, it's going automatically now.
Oh.
So sorry, just maybe exit the side stroke and just press the arrow for, yeah, if that's all right. Yeah, so see the arrow
Now,
there?
that mouse spider, it's very interesting because they're really rare because David Hughes is not here tonight, but he does know of them. But up in the Mallee Scrub where we are, as soon as it rains, they come out of the cracks in the ground. You'll never see them until it rains and they come out. They're quite deadly and that, but they're everywhere. There's one of the prettiest spiders that you can see. I sent it to Australian Geographic and they fitted it. Oh, that's my dog. He just keeps an eye on things when we're driving along. What's the next one? Now, could you double click this so it plays, please? Yeah. Susie, double click play. This is my new pets. These are echidnas, and I joined the 3 of them together, and we've now got 5 babies up there. We had to shoot 2 foxes because they love eating them. And this has been done with a $45 security camera. That's what took the photos. So I don't spend a lot of money, but anybody goes there, I can tell whether they're there. But has anybody seen echidnas like that before?
No.
They're just fantastic, and they come out sometimes. We'll sit up on the bank and they'll come walking out, and they're a beautiful little animal. That's the trial I was in a couple of weekends ago when I fell down the hole, and this is a couple of photos of that. That's one of our creeks, 30 metres wide, and that's one of the rally cars going through at about 100 k's an hour. And I hope that's in flood at the moment. These are just a couple more of the rally cars. That's the car that won it, a fella called Toby Price. Toby Price is quite a legend. That's a Ford. Anybody seen the Fords? Datsun. 49 cars took part in it, and there wasn't any accident. That Monaro is a beautiful car. And then where we go? And this is the peace run that Toby was representative on. We came down. We had to wait quite a while, and thank goodness Chris and Fee were over at Hungry Jack McDonald's, and they told us they were coming. That's the star of the show there, holding the flame, and that flame goes all the way to Sydney. Not that way, Cody. You look a bit weighty there. And that's the ladies there. They sang us a song, and it was a peace song, wasn't it, Cody?
Sorry, Cody.
It's a beautiful group of people. They really were, and that's the star team. God, you can't quit now, Susie. What's happened there? What's it doing by itself? Oh, and this is up at Pioneer Park because we couldn't get into the town hall. It was locked up. And that was done 20 years ago. It's interesting, 2 of the ladies there can remember when 20 years ago they came through with it also. But it's a very, very nice occasion. Now, this is where we had, the next event was representing the mayor and that, and quite a lot of councillors. Who came? You, yourself, and CEO, Fee, and David.
Yeah, I didn't make this one. That's why you guys were representing.
Yeah.
They're all on the same
And it's
day.
called Barrel Horse Racing, and we can be very, very proud on a great setup. Not cheap to hold horses. The car's worth 120,000 and the trailer's worth 100,000. So you need a bit of money. So Chris is saving up at the moment to get a horse float. And this is what they do. This is the young child going around. The grounds they've set up. That's an ex-staff member of council there, Shane. He's now helping them out there. And the lady in charge of that is Wendy Hill. And they're certainly doing a fantastic job. There's some bloke there talking to a lady and a councillor there. And the horses, this is what you call hanging it out around the corner. And that's marvellous how they ride. They ride so fast. That's doing a wheel stand there. And that young lady there came from Kenya, and she's over here doing a course in equestrian riding. So that was really good to see her there as an exchange student.
And just as an aside...
Oh, I don't know who those 2 dudes are, but they were there. They were there all day, you know, eating and drinking and enjoying the atmosphere. It was a great atmosphere, there's no doubt about it, that they put on there. They're the stud horses. Now, the actual event itself was won by the young lady, the one on the right there, and those 3 ladies there came down in those vehicles you see there, 140 kilometres at a place called Packsaddle, the other side of Broken Hill, and they came all the way down in the morning to ride all day, and then they drove all the way back that night. And the mother on the right-hand side rang me and said, Brian, we're all home, everything's really good, but you can imagine the day it was, and those 3 young ladies cleaned up all the prizes, and they were just magnificent to watch ride. Yeah, that's her, and that's how many prizes she won. She took home everything. So a very good run. Oh, that's a bit mixed up. That's the where the route of the flame went that Cody was holding. He didn't want to run any further than Gawler, but that's where it went, all the way around Australia. Oh, now this is the next one to do with Ethan's department, and this is about Hubert Wilkins. I went on the bus trip that was organised in the, for, what do they call it, History Month, and I went on that last Sunday. This is what I did last Sunday. I just got that off the TV. And this is all about Sir Hubert Wilkins, if anybody that's actually can remember the early pioneer. And these are a series of photos that I took about his activities that he was involved with. And what we did, we were picked up here at the Visitors Information Centre, and it went all the way up to Burra and out to Mount Bryan, and then back home again. These are just some of the collective things of Sir Hubert Wilkins, which Ethan would certainly know a lot about, because two young ladies were there and they seemed to know all about Ethan. They kept telling me that Ethan was a good bloke and all that sort of stuff. So, and these are some of the photos. That's Sir Hubert Wilkins. That's when he was in Antarctica. And this is his great nephew, niece rather, that's going to go over there. Oh, you'll see the bus and that. That's him there. That's the plane he smashed. That's the submarine. And this is the homestead we went to. And this was completely rebuilt by Dick Smith from Australian Geographics. And we spent time there going through and having a look at it. There were 72 people on the bus, and it was a great event. The only little thing that went wrong, we arrived at Burra and they forgot we were coming, so we didn't get a chance to have a look at the display in the institute there. There, that's the bus we went in, that's the town hall. And a great day was enjoyed. He was a great driver. I certainly wouldn't have taken the bus out where he took it on the roads, but it was well set up. And this is the countryside at the moment, like up there with the drought, although you may have seen it on television this morning if you watched it. Ruth Whittle, the longest mayor in South Australia, was on television this morning saying that all the crops in the northern area have basically been destroyed by the dust storm. And you'll see a couple of photos here of the dust storm, how bad it was. It's interesting that time capsule was put there on my birthday, so, but I'm not in it, you know. This is what the country's like around if you've not been up around. Now, that was Chrissy. Did you see it? Oh, yeah, that works with Ethan. So she organised the trip.
So just out of interest, Brian, have we got many? Oh, this is very interesting, but have we got many more photos? I swear you said 5 minutes.
It's finished. Yeah. These are some of the collective things that around the building and that there, as it says about Dick Smith and so forth. And
perfect.
No, it was a really great day. That stick there, and I just want to show you that this was the dust storm coming home. You could not see a thing, and the bus driver had a lot of trouble. And that was all the farmers' paddocks were being moved. And Ruth Whittle was on television there this morning, saying that all around the Peterborough, Jamestown area, the crops have been destroyed. So we don't realise that down here at Gawler, but that's how bad things are up there. There should be only a couple more. Yeah, that's what it's like at the moment. It's just blowing away. Everything's blown away. That's what it looked like coming home yesterday. You can imagine if you lived up that way, you know, you couldn't see any of the buildings and all that sort of stuff. It was very, very bad. So that's it. That's a bit about what I've done last week. I went to Speedway. Then I didn't put the Speedway tickets in because I know Mr. Councillor Kosh loves them.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian, for that, and thank you for sitting in. Thank you for standing in for the seat of the mayor on a couple of those items. It was greatly appreciated. I couldn't actually attend some of these. I was actually helping my dad concrete a shed that I'd already booked in. I know where I'd much rather be, but anyway. Council members' activities. I'm not going to accept any more slideshows, but any other further discussion or any activities you'd like to mention at this point in time?
Just very brief. Oh, thanks, Deputy Mayor. Just very briefly, a number of us, including Councillor Hennessy, David, Wendy, Andrew, and I, were at the National Reconciliation Week breakfast quite early this morning, so can't follow Councillor Samble's act with the slideshow. That was pretty incredible, but I'm sure at a time when we're probably a little bit more well rested, we'd love to have a proper slideshow and pizza night with you, Brian, so you can share some of your stories. But for now, I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you for that. If there's no other council member reports to go through, we might just have a break if you all wouldn't mind, just before we lead into the confidential items. Thank you. Okay, members, welcome back. We're going to keep going through our orders of business. We're on item 18.1, which is a confidential report, looking for a mover to move into confidence. Members, as per the officer's recommendation. Looking for a mover for into confidence. You're happy to move that way, Councillor White? Or would you like to speak to it?
Absolutely. Potentially, if the minute taker could just scroll down slightly. No, that's okay. But I believe we're recommending we go into confidence because we're dealing with an item that's of commercial nature.
Commercial information and confidential nature. Yep. No worries. Thank
Yes,
you.
exactly. And it would prejudice the commercial position of the person who supplied the information, and it contains information about the tenders of the supply of goods.
Thank you very much, Councillor White. Do I have a seconder to go into confidence? You're happy to second, Councillor Solomon. Is there any further discussion on moving into confidence? There be none. I'm going to put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. For those that may be listening in or viewing, we've just moved into confidence, so therefore the meeting stream will now cease. Being these are our last items, we'll probably close the meeting and you won't see us again tonight. So thank you very much for tuning in. Just give it a second to allow that to catch up.